Well, now that was actually between 2 and 3 minutes, wasn't it? Within the 2 to 3 minutes that I'd estimated. So I'll have no more lip. I still look as though I've been to Benidorm, though, don't I?
Don't worry about it. I might be able to tweak it. Like I said, I might be able to tweak. Have you been out in the sun?
Not at all. I'm white as. I mean, well, in fact, I am quite nicely or slightly bronzed, according to fans, at least.
Oh, I see. Right, I'll try and tone down the red a little bit.
Yeah, because it is very evident, isn't it?
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll tweak it. For folks watching, right, this is what he looks like to me now. And then obviously we'll tweak the colour a little bit. Yeah, you look like you're on blood pressure medication, mate.
It's odd, honestly. In fact, I'm so worried I want to rush to the nearest mirror to confirm that I actually am, as I am normally, almost white as a sheet.
Well, we've got here now. We've got here now eventually. We had a couple of technical issues to begin with, didn't we?
We did. Well,
but we're here.
In that I'm not really plugged into the 21st century yet, if that's what you mean. I'm a Luddite. I'm still on points and carbs.
You're doing yourself a disjustice because a disjustice? Yeah,
I was about to pick you up on that.
Sorry, because we've done a couple of.
Keep making cock-ups. You're going to make me look good.
I'm dealing with an actual proper professional journalist here, so I need to watch my grammar and everything, don't I?
Yeah, but if I claimed to be as you've just described me there, I'd have to be labelled as fraudulent. With my claim.
Come on. You are like...
I'll tell you the funny thing. When you're actually doing the job, you're just riding bikes and then sort of attaching yourself to a laptop, aren't you? Phoning people up, asking them the odd question. It doesn't seem like what it actually is. But yeah, strictly speaking, because I earn my beer money from riding bikes and writing about them, yes, I am professional. Is that Brewdog?
It is. Yeah. I'm not sponsored by them, but people, believe it or not, people send me crates of Brewdog. Not Brewdog, but people do. I just get Amazon packages arriving, crates of Brewdog.
That you don't pay for?
Yeah. Like literally people that send me that listen to the podcast, they just send a crate of Brewdog through. So thank you very much to people that do it.
As a means of gratitude then, as a gesture of gratitude.
Honestly, it's amazing.
I think, well, in fact, I was about to claim that every alcoholic drink I've ever sucked, I've paid for, which is the biggest lie imaginable. I'll tell you, right, we went on that V-Strom 800 launch. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the cost of the bike was before the launch, but we had so much booze during that launch. It's probably more expensive than originally planned after the launch.
I've had a quick look through some of the questions, and actually somebody's asking about the V-Strom launch, and it's in one of the Patreon questions. So we'll get there fairly soon. Good. However, folks who are listening, if you've not gathered yet, this is Mossy, Chris Moss.
Now,
I'm going to blow smoke up your arse for 2 seconds here, Mossy. Mossy is pretty much, he is the GOAT of certainly British motorcycle journalism. Like nonsense. Even the other journos, they bow down to this man.
Absolute and utter nonsense. If you want me to feel
it's not. You're a very humble man, but you know.
No, it's simply not true. Do you know what? I'm a bloke who's got away with it for 29 years. I'm just this little bloke from up north who jumps on a bike with a reasonable amount of experience and ability and some sort of ability to transfer my emotions from riding that bike to other people via either written form or a video presentation. I'm just out. Do you know what? Alex Hearn, and I salute him as I say this, he once summed us all up saying, listen, we're all just a bunch of wankers, really, just giving it a go. And it's true. And do you know what? It's so true when I bump into journalists who think they are the next king of England. And there's a few of them. Mm-hmm. I would say, from a British journalistic point of view, Michael Neaves by a mile. That guy works harder than you could ever believe. Yep. In fact, you know what? I've done I think I did 2 launches with him quite recently, and his workload is just ridiculous. He has not got time to enjoy the job. So when it comes to professionalism, people like Neavesy deserve the plaudits. I'm, as I say, a bloke who gets away with it. Look, I'm all right. I'm not saying, I should be fired, but to describe me in the fashion you have is entirely erroneous. So,
well, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're wrong. I've tried to get Neavesy on, actually. I've tried to get Neavesy on here, but
too busy. I bet he's too busy.
Yeah, he just says it's not his cup of tea. He's not up for it. So,
right, I'll have to have a word with him about that. Yeah. He's quite a shy guy,
Yeah, I've seen him at when I've done track days and stuff, and he just seems to keep himself to himself, doesn't he? He doesn't. He's not blowing it up or anything like that.
He obviously hates people, doesn't he?
What are you, a people person?
Yeah, I love him. And I'll come to this, in fact, I'll come to it now.
Go on. I
said this only very recently. I have had the privilege to ride some amazing bikes and go to some amazing places to ride them. But what I will remember and what I highlight more than anything else are the people that I've met. Now, I can immediately list a load of superstars, but it's a load of people behind the scenes that don't get the publicity or the recognition that they deserve, that are as equally fascinating, People like Alan Millyard, for God's sake. I mean, okay, he is one of the better-known guys now, but what he does with lumps of metal and tools is just beyond belief. It's just... And it's so creative. I mean, if you asked him to build the 4th bridge in his backyard, give me enough money and incentive, he'd probably go about it, wouldn't he, straight away?
Yep.
He's a man that doesn't know the word impossible, I don't think. I mean, do you know what? I need to talk to him more because I've only met him It was quite freakily. We were on a KTM launch in the UK. We were just at some high point of southwest England, I don't know what it was, and some relevant place for us to ride and take pictures. And he storms up on some 6-cylinder thing, a Z whatever it was. Yeah. And I just got the chance to speak to him very briefly, but I've watched his work, and he seems, as all the best people seem to be, just a lovely man as well.
Yeah, but I tried to get him on a podcast as well, but he's quite shy, I think, and he's just like, no, it's not my thing. So, I
mean, I think a lot of people. In fact, I was thinking about it today. I've been out on my V-Strom this morning, which I'll tell you all about in a minute because it gave me a very good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought, bloody hell, I'm doing this bloody podcast tonight, and I just immediately felt very nervous. Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes the prospect of things, I don't know, I'm just gassing on now, but sometimes the prospect of doing something is actually far, far more challenging to deal with than the actual thing you're worried about in the first place.
Absolutely. That's life in general, isn't it? I think a lot of the time.
It is. Do you know what? It happens to me with launches, right? I like the idea of getting invited to a launch, but as soon as I start thinking about the plane, do you know what? You'll get an invite to a launch maybe a fortnight before you ride the bike.
Do you, sorry to interrupt, but do you get it as late as that as well? I always thought it was just because I was an afterthought. If I ever got an invite through, it was like, we're doing this tomorrow, we're doing this in a week's time. And I'm like,
listen, it depends. It depends. Listen, I've had a few. I mean, one of the last things I did, or more recent things I did, I don't know if you saw it, I did it on 44 Teeth, riding with Graham Jarvis.
Mm-hmm.
I think the word "with" needs to be put in inverted commas immediately. As soon as the invite, I think Mr. Fagan phoned me up and said, "Do you want to ride with Jarvis?" And I just went, "Mate, are you kidding me?" I mean, for anyone who doesn't know him, he's one of the most accomplished riders in both trials and enduro. He's a hard enduro championship runner, isn't he? I mean, I think he just finished 5th last year. But he's won, Christ, what was it? I think he's won over 30, I think I'm right in saying, hard enduros, like Sea to Sky, Romaniacs.
Yeah.
they're all nuts, aren't they? And he's one.
He defies physics on a bike, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
He just defies physics. He's like, how do you what you do?
When I watch him, I want to sue my physics teacher because he didn't mention anything about bollocks. Yeah. Now, here's the funny thing, right? Just to put him in context, I go to ride at his place. He's got various spots, but he's got a spot down in Portugal, I think it was. And he rides the bike like on one wheel just for fun. You know, he'll wheelie it from no miles an hour.
Yeah.
At the standstill and then just crawl along at whatever pace that he fancies.
Yeah, total control.
And he could do that until the petrol runs out, you know. Just super skill. But then I said, look, is it possible to do a short interview? And he went, well, yeah. And I said, look, it'll only be 2 or 3 minutes. Oh, talking for 2 or 3 minutes. I'm not sure I could do that. incredibly sort of withdrawn and shy, you know, as a person.
Wow.
Do you know what? He's one of the people that make me really sympathetic to the likes of... I'll use Casey Stoner as the best example. I think, and a bit like Michael Dunlop as well, I think they both love riding the bikes and they're extremely able at doing it, but they hate the rest of the shit. They hate the publicity. They hate the whole media requirement business, you know? Yeah. And it is getting increasingly demanding, isn't it? Once upon a time, you just turned up at a meeting, you raced your bike. Fred Clark might have a word with you before and straight after the race. And the man from MCN, Norrie White or whatever, would come along and have a few words. But that would be largely it. Now, Jesus Christ, there's a microphone stuffed in your face all the time. Yeah. I mean, the most pertinent example of that was, I saw, and forgive me for this, some of the viewers, I'm sure you'll have to. I was watching an F1 race from Spa, and Rosberg biffed Hamilton. His teammate biffed him off the circuit and forced him to retire. Scooter comes and picks Hamilton up. But the rules of F1 state that you've got to go to that media pen to be interviewed, whatever.
You know, straight after something like that. Oh.
Straight after. and the most inane question is, so anyway, Lewis, how do you feel?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd tell them all a foxtrot Oscar. Beep. Straight back to the motorhome to get absolutely spanned and play with my girlfriend, but do anything other than face the media, you know? We ask too much of these people.
I think these days as well, with social media, with YouTube, Instagram, everything, TikTok, everything like that, people have an expectation for like a celebrity almost to share their life, don't they? They expect to have like almost daily content from them, showing them what their lives are like. It's a big ask, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, but the other thing is, Bruce, that they want them to be a massive personality as well. I mean, Christ, they ride bikes like gods, and they're expected to be a super personality as well. You know, it can't necessarily happen. I mean, people have a go at the likes of, I don't know, who's the most quiet and timid guy? I mean, Pedrosa wasn't exactly the most outspoken bloke. But I mean, you know, an absolute god on a motorcycle. That'll do for me. If you can add something else to that, great. That's a bonus. But let's not have that be the massive expectation that it's become, as you've just said. You know.
I think you're right. I think you're right. And fair play to those who do manage to almost separate their private life from their like work life. The racers, people like Dunlop, Michael Dunlop, prime example, isn't he? Like he will only engage when he wants to engage, and outside of that, he's just not doing it. So fair play to the guy.
Can I tell you a Michael Dunlop story?
Go on.
I don't do it quite as much now. I did a bit of it this morning, mind you, but once upon a time I used to go trail riding more than once a week. It was an absolute love of mine. Still is, but I just don't get out quite so much. Anyway, I used to go out with these guys in the Peak District. And we're having a ride, and they said, oh yeah, Michael Dunlop's coming along soon. No, to the next one maybe, you know. And I said, oh, bloody hell, any chance of coming along? We said, yeah. He said, you'll really like him. He's a really shy, sort of quite calm guy and very sort of generous and very thoughtful. And I'm going, are you sure you're not talking about William? This is obviously before William passed away. And they said, no, it's definitely Michael. Now, I'd only seen Michael after races or at the circuit where he, because he puts his absolute heart and soul into the racing and doesn't really like the media bit, he's often a bit sharp, isn't he? And sort of, I always got the impression that you did not want to get on the wrong side of Michael Dunlop because he
looks like a bull, doesn't he? He's a bull of a man when you see him.
Exactly. I wouldn't like to spill his pint, I'll tell you. Anyhow, I arranged to go to it, and sure enough, he turns up, and they were dead right. What a nice guy.
That's awesome.
Man, easy going, laid back, all the things that you would not think Michael Dunlop could ever be, he very much was. They were bang on. And the fact of the matter is, when you take him away from a race circuit and all the pressures of that, and he's just having fun, and he's relaxed, and he's got time, and he's doing what he wants, ace guy. Really got time for him. I saw him very briefly recently at some corporate do, and I didn't pester him too much, actually, because the whole world wanted to talk to him, and it was pre-TT as well.
Yeah.
And you can only imagine, that guy needs to win, doesn't he? He goes to the TT to win. And I didn't want to hound him with any sort of basic questions. Do you know what? I've met some of these really famous guys, but it's always been a bit sort of orchestrated and that there's a certain script to follow. I would love to meet some of these guys that I've met down the pub and talk about anything other than bikes, just to see what they're really like and just to see away from the pressure of the environment that they work in,
Do you ever listen to the Chasing the Racing podcast?
A little bit. Now, there's a bit of sadness attached to that, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as much hat up there.
Yeah, right, okay, yeah. That's a bloody... Do you know what? That's a reminder that we all need to bear in mind, isn't it? It's all right watching racing and it's all right riding bikes, but you shouldn't. Well, every so often you're reminded just how risky they can be.
Totally, yeah.
And that was a freak crash as well,
But the reason I asked is that, obviously, Chrissy and Dom used to have some amazing guests, and they still do now. Dom has guest presenters on with them, and they have some amazing guests on there. And they've had people on there who, me personally, you've built up an idea as to what their persona, their personality is going to be like before they go, and yet once they're on, they totally open up, and because it's like a 2-3 hour conversation, they open up, and you start to see the real person behind it. And like Josh Brooks was one of them. I didn't know much about Josh Brooks, but just what you hear in passing was that he was quite an abrupt bloke. Yeah, and he seemed a really decent lad.
Let me interrupt there. We think we know these people, don't we? And we form an opinion on them based on what? I mean, I was listening to a bloke the other day. Some superstar was asked about some other superstars, and he said, "No, I haven't met him, so I can't say." Now, I know that's a boring answer, and it's a lot more boring than somebody going, "Yeah, wanker," and expressing an opinion. But listen, I've met some people that I don't like. I'd like to think that I either like or don't like someone for good, credible reasons. It's all too easy to form an opinion, isn't it? Because we just get snapshots of these people. And quite often in a very specific pressured environment. I did hear Dom from the TT, actually, proper accent. Not people think I'm a Geordie. It's not true. I'm from Teesside. I've got a very different accent to the trained ear. But you must know that I don't sound anything like Dom. Where is Dom from, actually? Is he proper Newcastle?
I think he is Newcastle. Yeah, I think he is.
I mean, he's a proper Geordie. Accent's amazing. Whereas
if he's not, if he's listening to this, he's swearing and throwing something at the screen as we speak.
Well, he's doing a damn good impression of Jimmy Dale if he's not. But good guy. There's a load of good guys. I mean, right, I'm really embarrassed now because I want to make reference to a man whose name just escapes me for this second. Rides for Padgett's from Whitby area, super stock, TT rider this year. Didn't have the best of TTs, and he was upset by it. This is properly
not McGuinness.
No,
not McGuinness.
McGuinness is not.
Oh
from
no, he's
Whitby,
not. He's not from Whitby. He's Morecambe, right? Whitby. But who's Whitby?
No, I'll tell you. The more questions the longer this takes for me to remember, the more embarrassing it is. Let me.
Somebody somewhere is shouting the name as we speak.
Listen, I forgot that Valentino's surname occasionally. You just do it.
No way.
Do you know what? I had a bad TT crash and I had quite a bad head injury. And this is my excuse. I'm getting this in early. I do have a massive problem with names. Right. Do you know a man, and I'm going to forget his name for the surf. This is a classic example of it. Right, I've done it again. There's a guy who works for MCN that I really like, and I've known him for quite a while. He's in charge of the sports desk. And I met him at the recent ABR festival, and I could have told him everything about our friendship and when we'd hooked up, remember, but I couldn't. Michael Guy.
Okay.
I couldn't remember his name. The very best example of this, and this is an example of how the brain needs not to be chucked against a wall at the TT. I used to live with a girl for 7 years and her mother, very big house. Mother was lovely, never got in the way.
Never knew her name.
Always. Wasn't that bad, you bugger. I went to the local village corner shop and she came in and I just went, shit, man, what's she called? I'd been living with her for 7 years. Right, who is the rider for Padgett's from Whitby?
Are we going to have to Google this? Are we going to have to Google it?
I'll tell you what. Can we make this the podcast quiz?
Right.
I'm going to see. Right. I'll tell you what. When it comes into my head, whatever we're discussing, I'll just blurt his name out to prove that that's the time I remembered it. Do not.
Right. If you know it now, folks, whack it in the comments. Go.
I mean, listen. It's ridiculous that I don't know. Really nice, successful, fast, down-to-earth guy. Nothing to dislike about him. I'm a fan of his, and I can't remember his sodding name.
Whitby.
Don't give it any thought. When you start thinking about things, you mess things up.
Yeah. It'll pop in at some point. Right. Can we rewind a little bit and find out a wee bit more about you? So obviously, you've been a bike journal for the best part, 30 years now? Almost 30 years? 29 years.
Yeah.
So, how did you get into bikes? Tell us about how you got into bikes and then how you got into journalism.
Right. I got into bikes by accident, right? Remember that word? A mate of mine who I used to cycle with a lot was an avid cyclist. Eddie Merckx is the big hero. No one else. Eddie Merckx. Do you know who Eddie Merckx is?
Nope.
Wanker. Hang your head in shame.
I'm only 32. Come on.
No.
I'm not.
Must have had a tough paper round. Paper round must have gone up a lot of hills.
Not enough hills. Have you seen the size of my belly?
Eddie Merckx in his day was just the king of cycle racing. He's the Mick doing the Valentino, the Hillwoods, Well, here's a few things, right? 1.5 Tour de France or is it Tours de France? Tour de France, I think is.
Yeah.
Tour de France. And won 525 professional races, just a god, right? He's the big hero.
Wow.
I know about this Barry Sheen bloke because one of the lads at school said, Barry Sheen's just come off 175 at Daytona. And I used to see him on telly occasionally, but it was just sort of something I was fascinated by. That's all. Mm. No real sort of desire to get on a motorbike at all. But this mate who I cycle with, he buys an SS50, right? Honda. Moped, and it needs a bit of work. He gets it going and he says, do you want to go on that? I said, all right, let's give it a try then, just out of curiosity. I wasn't gagging to. Anyway, I couldn't believe that at the first corner it did not respond like a push bike does, like in an instant. I didn't know how much pressure to put in. In a word, I cocked it up and I left the carriageway and just bounced up and down on a load of bloody muck and shit and went down in a big heat. Now, this is after just 30 yards, The very first corner I came to, I couldn't negotiate. But strangely, I obviously got some part of the drug known as motorcycle injected into me during that 30-yard stint. Anyway, my mate's going ballistic with rage because I've just crashed the bike that he's been trying to get going for ages. But I said, sod it, I'll buy it off you. And that was the beginning. And do you know what? If I think carefully enough, some of my best rides are on that moped because something's only new once, isn't it? And the rides on that felt brand new every time. I'd wake up and realise that I had an SS50. I had a bike and I could go somewhere on it. One of the best rides ever. And I know this sounds a bit daft given what I've ridden since. I'm on this SS50 and I'm in the North York Moors just riding about, and lads on Z900s and big bikes are waving and flashing the red lights like they used to. And I just went, man, I'm in the gang.
Yeah, part of the club,
Yeah, I just felt part of this fraternity suddenly, and just, I think that was the start of it, really. You realise that it is a big sort of family and it's a way of life and all that shite. And I was suddenly part of it. I'd signed up to it and my application had been successful. I was a biker, and it just went on from there. And the crashing, unfortunately, kept continued.
Well, they do say, don't they? If you're not crashing, you're not trying. Apparently,
I think I crash because I don't think properly on occasion. I have met a man, and I will mention him as one of my heroes in due course, who really changed things. Shall I mention him now?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, I've bumped into a hell of a lot of people, and a hell of a lot of people have been sort of instrumental, but one guy, and he's probably the nicest bloke I've ever met. I don't think I've heard him swear, and I certainly haven't had him get angry. He needed to give me a bollocking once, right, because he'd been instructed by his wife to do so. And at no point, listen, I felt his disappointment in me. But at no point did he raise his voice, use any bad language, and that's him all over. Mr. Ron Haslam.
Oh, wow.
Right. Okay. Do you know what? I nearly said I raced with him once. I was on the same start line on a couple of but he went round the circuit slightly faster than I did. Anyway, and I bumped into him because I used to work at MCN and because you sort of met loads and loads of people. I've said a lot and had a bit of small talk. But I met him properly. I'd gone freelance and we went to that Honda SP2 launch, the VTR 1000 SP2.
Yeah.
Edwards went to win the world title on it. Anyway, the launch was at Almeria and Ron's the special guest. Anyway, I said to him, Ron, I think I'm having a bit of trouble with this bike. Can you follow me and see if you can suss out what it is, And this is Ron all over. We got back and he said, well, in full polite Mr. Haslam fashion, says, look, there might be something wrong with the bike, but I think there's a bit of a problem with the rider. And basically, it's not, you're blaming your tools, your shit, not this fantastically crafted thing that people have, that's cost sort of millions of man hours and certainly millions of yen to produce. It's the bloody fat northerner trying to bloody get it around Almeria that's the problem. Anyway, he pointed out the error of my way, and it's not always easy to adjust your riding style. If you've been cocking it up for as long as I had, it wasn't easy to adjust it to be a lot better. But in the end, I ended up going about, I think, 2 seconds faster, but a load safer. I mean, basically spending way too much time in the corner, thinking that the more you can clatter off the floor, the better it is. I don't think that was the case on that bike because it's got pretty good ground clearance. But I used to think that getting it as far over as you could and getting around. When in fact it's a question of corners are there to be sort of just dispatched, really. Get in deep, get it turned, get it up, get it out.
That's it.
And the corner that was cocking up most preceded the longer straight. So my exit to that corner was rubbish because I was too busy with the bike still on its side rather than upright on the gas,
Yeah,
and that's where I got the time from. And he's taught me to ride much more economically with effort, faster but less dangerously by a mile. And my crash rate just, it didn't spoil it. It didn't prevent me. I'll go back to that. My crash rate just dropped massively. In saying that, it didn't stop me crashing one of the instructor's bikes at the Haslam School, where I subsequently went to teach people how to ride a bit better. But yeah, made a big difference. And he's just an example of what every human being should be like, just calm, tolerant, philosophical. I mean, Christ, he's lost 2 brothers in racing. He lived a very, very tough life as a youngster. The chances of him standing on a 500 Grand Prix podium on multiple occasions were nil when he was a youngster, because he comes from a very deprived neighborhood, and yeah, the chances in life were not big, but he's just striven to to make things work. Okay, he was fortunate enough to meet Mel Carter, who gave him a great start in racing. But yeah, an incredible guy, and I think that the guys, there's a few others, Mick Extance, Simon Pavey, they've had a big effect, and I think the ones that I've got to like the most are the ones that I hold in the highest esteem. Going back to that theory of, I can't make a judgment on someone like Valentino Rossi because I've met him once and I've never had a conversation with him. For all we know, he might be quite different to that persona that he projects to the screen. I dare say that's not the case, but you never know. But yeah, I've been lucky enough to sort of spend time with quite a few people, and they are what makes my job the most satisfying of all. It's the people.
Absolutely, and I'm a big advocate of that. I say it on this podcast all the time. People are nice. Most people out there, people are nice. We're all the same, and I've been fortunate enough to experience that all around the world. And no matter what country people are in, no matter what language they speak, no matter what faith they follow, none of that matters. People will help. If you find yourself stuck somewhere, especially on a motorbike.
Yes.
If you need help, people open their lives to you. I've had it happen to me. People just, they welcome you into their lives. They take you back to their home. They feed you. They shelter you. They look after you.
They must be bloody nice if they're willing to help someone who looks like you.
Well, do you know when I don't know if you know.
I'll tell you, I'd take one look at you. Hang on, I haven't finished dissing you. I'd take one look at you and think, I'm not helping that shady bastard. I might chuck you a tenner and be off, but that'd be the end of it.
I never used to have this. I never used to have this. I don't know if you know my sort of history or not, but 10 years ago...
I did. You've done a lot of miles on an R1, haven't you?
On a Gixxer 1000.
Oh, Gixxer 1000, sorry, I beg your pardon, yeah. I looked at the pictures from that sans. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire en français? Beard. How do you say beard in French?
Beard. I don't know. I'm not le beard. I don't know, mate.
You're fired, mate.
But I had that. I was just. It changed me. It totally changed my life. Not just a trip, but
growing the beard did.
Well, the beard as well, but the experiences I had on the trip, and fundamental to that was my experience of people. Because before that, I don't know if you know, but I used to be a copper, and my experience of people was not particularly great, to be honest. Because being a copper in London, the vast majority of people I deal with.
Is that what you were?
Yeah. I was met. Yeah, I worked South London.
Scrap this podcast. I need to interview you. I bet you've got some amazing stories.
Well, yeah, maybe some I can't talk about, but
I bet.
Over a beer in a pub, I'll chat to you. Yeah.
Do you know what? Right, if I was in charge of education, there's a scary thought. It would be utterly what's the word I'm looking for? It would be utterly compulsory to travel for children to travel somewhere. It's the biggest education of all, isn't it?
Totally. Seeing with your own eyes.
Yeah, your mind goes from that to that, doesn't it?
100%.
It has to take in so many different sort of experiences.
But I don't know, as a child, are you gonna appreciate what you're seeing, understand what you're seeing, have maybe the maturity and just general attitude? I don't know.
Hang on, I'm not saying that you are in your most receptive part of your life as a child. I'm simply saying that kids should learn to travel at the earliest possible opportunity. I think one of the problems we've got as Brits is that we live on an island and we've developed a really quite insular attitude because of it. If I was in charge, I would cut the foundations. You're in Maidstone, right? I'd cut the foundations to our island and I'd tow it to Calais, stitch it on, brick it together, and just allow us a lot more opportunity to go to Europe. Do you know what? I never went to Europe for ages because there was just this psychological barrier. You know, the English Channel sort of formed more than anything else. It was just over there. You know, it was just this hurdle to jump over. And then once I'd done it, I just went, mate, what, you probably just get on a boat for Christ's sake. It was just
now you got a tunnel. Half hour, bosh, you're there.
But, I mean, it's the same with the Americans, isn't it? I mean, you travel much in the States. They are so happy with their lot. A lot of them don't feel the need to travel and identify and explore another culture.
Something ridiculous like 80% of Americans don't have a passport. Yeah. It's something ridiculous like that.
But, you know, you're denying yourself so much by not going to witness all these things, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the best thing to do if you've got a motorbike? It's to leave the UK and travel on it to Europe, you know? It's
absolutely, because
there's world there.
Totally. I mean, I think the closest you can maybe get to the freedom that you'll experience in the mountains of say, Spain, for example. I'm a big advocate for Spain. I just love riding over there. The closest you're going to get to the freedom that you get there is somewhere like, you know, up in the northwest of Scotland. But obviously, you're going to have loads of rain probably to contend with, and it's just not. It's not on the same level. And Germans,
Germans in camper vans.
Yeah.
Actually, do you know what? I absolutely adore Scotland. I think you're right. I think it's up there with. I think you're right. I mean, the language barrier is a bit of a problem, obviously.
It's all English and Polish that live up there. There's no Scots left up there.
But no, a great place to ride a bike. Lovely people when you can understand them. And yeah, and yet I still meet, and I'm amazed to hear this, so many people who haven't either travelled to Scotland or certainly not been on a bike. It's as though we can only look one way, isn't it? We either stay in the sort of hot spots of England, like the peaks, or go to Wales, north. There's lots of good places to ride bikes in England, of course, or people do, once they get through that psychological barrier, go to Europe, don't they? I mean, thank God European travel has caught on as much as it has. But yeah, a lot of people don't include Scotland, do they, in the wish list?
It's one of the biggest joys I get from this sort of life I've got now on YouTube as I hate the term, but I suppose I am as an influencer. Is I've managed to grow quite a nice community round about the YouTube channel and everything like that. I have a Patreon thing. So, we do meetups. So we'll pick somewhere in the UK and we all just descend on there. There can be like 90, 100 of us. We just descend there for the weekend. Someone local to that area plots a route and we just go out for a ride, and it's very social. There's a lot of beer involved in the evening. And you get a chance to meet folk, and the amount of people who say exactly what you just said, like they might have been riding all their life, but some of them have never been outside of their own little hometown, their home area. They've got their regular ride that they do, and that's it. Or they go to their regular calves, and that's it. And then all of a sudden they're introduced to this option of going somewhere different, and for whatever reason they do it, and then they meet all these other new like friends that everyone's got biking in common, and they discover that you've ridden here and you've ridden over there, and the next thing I know, people have gone to Wales or they've gone to Scotland or they've popped across the channel and they're now in France and Germany, and it changes lives, totally changes lives.
I mean, I'm amazed that people have not had the sort of the desire to go further afield. I mean, in saying that, when I first went to Europe, I went on a CX500, with girlfriend at the time, and I was a courier in London.
Is this the one that you forgot the name of?
No. No, I forgot the name of the lady's mother. Don't forget.
Right,
Hello,
okay.
Rose. I have remembered your name. Hello, Rose. We'll say that twice. No, mates had told me, look, get yourself over the water. It's just a different world, So I packed up the old CX. But on the boat, I was quietly shitting myself. And there's another guy there. He must have been on a bike or something. And I said, look, give me a quick sort of guide to staying alive in France and all the other nations I'm going to. And he sort of said, well, hang on a minute, calm down. It's just like, all you have to do is ride on the other side of the road. Okay, you might have a bit of communication difficulty, but this is nowhere near the daunting and terrifying challenge that you're painting the picture of, You will have a whale of a time. And just one of the best trips, again, because it was the furthest. I got down to Yugoslavia,
Nice.
Mind you, highlight of the trip, I was a bit of a mileage Nazi back then, and I just keep going sometimes. And I went in summer, and on one evening, we didn't stop riding until about 11 o'clock. Anyway, we pitched this tent, thought we'd deal with the payment and the necessaries the following morning. Woke up to discover that we're in a nudist campsite. and I'll tell you, while
accidentally on purpose.
No, hey, I'll tell you, while you might think that is the best thing for your eyes to witness, there was
they were all 70.
Oh, man, there's some properly knackered people there. It was a bad advert for nakedness, I'll tell you. Couldn't wait to get me bloody tent wrapped up.
Put you off your sausage in the morning, did it?
Well, I had breakfast elsewhere, mate. No, there was no way I could eat after seeing some of the things I saw. But no, just again, and this is the great thing about bikes, isn't it? If you think about, as I have been in preparation for this, just some of the things you've done, that they can warm you, can't they?
Oh, totally.
Look, that guy said, "Do you want to ride on this SS50?" If I said no, what? God, man, I would have missed out on so much, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
I mean, I might have become an astronaut. Who knows?
I totally agree, and I have a tour business now. I have my own sort of tour company, Chicken Strips, and last year I took on. Do you know Simon Weir?
Yes,
wrote Bikers Britain. Lovely fella.
Proper bloke.
So
proper bloke.
I sort of brought on Simon, so he plots the route and he will lead the group, and then I have the following and I do the filming. I'll film everything and document everything for everybody and make some videos out of each tour. So we're taking away.
Always in Europe.
At the moment, yes, we are looking a little bit further afield, but next year is going to be Europe as well. But yeah, I think eventually we'll probably look a bit further afield as well for a couple of trips. But next year is going to be, our sort of second year of doing this together. I've been doing it myself since about 2016, 17 or so. But now with two of us, we can take a lot. I used to only take 6 people max. Really, just because if there's only one of you, and you never know who you're going to get in the group as well, so I like to keep the numbers low. But with 2 of us, we can up the numbers. So we take up to maybe 13 to 15 people now. But it's everything that you've just said about introducing touring, introducing riding in Europe to people is totally true. We've just gone through it. We just came back from the Picos, and people's minds were blown.
I mean, how rewarding must it be to see the smiles
totally,
and the joy?
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it.
I mean, do you know what? It's why I used to love teaching at the Haslam School, because you can make someone's day. You're giving them the benefit of your experience and passing that on, and introducing them, and hopefully introducing them positively to a whole new world that they go on to explore again and again and again, I mean, I bet loads of your guys say, bloody Nora, I can't wait to come back.
They're all repeat bookings now,
there you go.
We've done like 6 tours so far, and I would say about 80% of the people have already gone, I don't care where you're going next year, I'm coming, like, take my money. And I'm like, we've not even worked out dates or costs yet. Put me on, I'm coming. So it's
I mean, Christ, that's a very, very satisfying thing to hear, I'm sure, isn't it?
I love it, absolutely love it. To go from my previous employment, where, to be honest with you,
from the police,
in the old belt. I mean, I finished my police career in diplomatic protection, so I was at Downing Street and doing all that bollocks, and I really, I kind of didn't think of myself as a copper anymore. I certainly wasn't there for the public. I was just there to protect the MPs and the diplomatic community, of which I had very little regard for, to be perfectly honest. So there was no job satisfaction there. And if anything, I was just getting really quite disillusioned with it. And I kind of resented being in the position that I was in. It wasn't a good place. Now where I am, it's just like, wow.
Let me ask you this. I mean, being a policeman, I mean, as you alluded to earlier, you see a certain section of society more often than not, don't you? You see the baddies.
Yeah.
And if you see enough baddies, often enough, which you will do if you're a policeman, your judgment of society is coloured badly, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. I've said this before. They're not necessarily baddies, but people tend to be suspicious of the police, so people tend to be quite guarded. They could be, it could be your mum, but people sort of are a little bit offhand with you just because you're wearing a uniform. And then also a lot of the time you deal with them, they're in heightened states. They've either just been attacked or burgled or something major's happened in their life for them to call the old bill, or for you to be there in front of them. And you get a tainted view of people a lot of the time. That's not necessarily healthy, I think.
I think you get a fairly specific view of a certain section of society, i.e. road users, if you're a motorcyclist.
Yeah, listen, you do, yeah.
I didn't pass my test, car test, till I was 40. And I relied on a bike absolutely 100%. That was my only form of transport, I mean, listen, I lived in London for 10 years. It was the only sensible thing to have, because you can't get anywhere fast in the car.
You were a courier as well, weren't you?
Yeah, man, 10 years. I mean,
some stories there we'll go into.
There's not as many as you think, but yeah, bit of a time. I need more fuel in a minute, by the way. But
no worries.
Let's just go into that sort of view you get. When you're a motorcyclist, I think you just think everyone driving is just shit at that task. You just think everyone is a complete and utter cretin and just can't do that job, or don't care about your existence. Whereas I think part of the reason why that occurs is because you're much more vulnerable, obviously, and you're going to be much more sensitive, aren't you, to other people's driving. When somebody does a bit of a number, it's not the same thing when I'm in my Sprinter van. If somebody does a move on me, it's a slight worry. If they do the same move,
aren't you?
Yeah, and the consequences of something going wrong are nowhere near as bad, are they? And like I say, I think you just think everyone's a twat. The road is a bad place to be. It's a very specific environment, isn't it? It's quite hostile, I think. I mean, former girlfriend whose mother's name I couldn't remember, she decides she meets me, sort of sees this biking thing and thinks, oh, I'll have a go at that. Anyway, this girl used to fly microlights, and she's got a good gutsy spirit, which is a great thing to have as a motorcyclist. Anyway, so she buys a little CG 125, passes a CBT, but I'm watching her drive and I'm just saying, mate, your driving is shit. You're just not paying attention. You don't fucking indicate. You don't use the mirrors. You do this when you get into bikes and you'll have a bad moment.
Get wiped out.
Yeah. What do you mean? Well, I said, look, you should be learning this. It should be so apparent to you. This is a much more disciplined sort of process. The bar for travelling on a motorcycle safely is a much, much higher one than it is in a car, isn't it? And anyway, in the end, I just said, look, not comfy with this at all. And she saw the light. She just said, look, I don't think I'm really cut out for this. I'm sure if I let her to it, she would have learned the hard way like I did. I mean, Christ, I used to crash my brains out when I first started riding. Part of the reason for that, though, was just it was the sheer ignorance or it was a combination, rather, of the sheer ignorance of how it ought to be done, but this spirit of sheen, shall we say. I really thought that I was the boy. I would hear about at breakneck speed without knowing really what I was doing.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I think back to that period, those early days on a bike, I am extremely lucky to be here. I used to go around blind corners flat out.
Yeah.
Crests that I couldn't see over the top, man. When I get to the top, I'll be able to see what's the problem,
Yeah.
Just over them at a ridiculous pace. And it's funny, I've had a lot of crashes and I've been hurt, but some of the near misses in those days were things that really scare me more than anything, And just that idea that I did what I did and just should have died on multiple occasions,
I think there's a lot of us can relate to that. I was the same. I was quite late to biking. I think I was 32 when I started riding, and I just felt like I just felt comfortable straight away, on a bike. And I remember going out riding with my mates who'd been riding all their lives, and they were like 20 years older than me, and I was going out and I would be the leader in the pack. Do you know what I mean? I would just be, I was just way faster than them, cornering faster than them. They were all just like, oh my God, I don't know how you do that.
Were you blissfully unaware of the hazards?
100%. Yeah. No, I thought I was aware of the hazards and I thought I was in total control. At that time in life, I was driving the police cars and I was driving the riot vans and I'd ride the bike the way we were taught to drive police vehicles.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, I'm reading the road and I'm fine at this. And anything that did happen, I got away with it. I always managed to react sufficiently and never had an accident, and just thought, nailed this, nailed it.
Do you know what? Let me just interrupt briefly. I think every so often, a bit of a near miss, just a wake-up call, even a slight injury. But back then, I think it would have been good to just have the odd topple, just to serve as a reminder. Hang on a minute, there's a limit here, mate, and you've done something wrong. You made a mistake, and it hurts. Yeah, of course it does. You need to sort that out.
Well, for me, go on.
I crashed on a regular basis. I used to work at this bearing factory in Peterlee, right? And it was a big factory, and it had its own medical centre, so to speak. You know? And I used to be in there getting patched up, I think on average once every 3 weeks.
Jesus.
It was just but the problem with it was I never got hurt. I didn't break anything. You know, I just took a bit of flesh off, and I just kept getting up. And I think subconsciously I thought I was Captain Scarlet, and I was indestructible, and I could just keep getting away with it. And just going back to what I said, I think every so often you need a short, sharp shock to just, you know, remind you that, oh, this is a serious business, mate. Yeah. I mean, I still make mistakes. Of course I do. You know, you will do. You're a human being. But I bollock myself good and proper for some of the errors I make, even if they don't have any consequences. You just miss something. Or you haven't quite done something right. You run wide or something. It's like, you arsehole. What are you doing? You know, you should know better.
You know better. Yeah.
Don't dick about. This is a serious business. Over to you. Sorry,
it's all right. I did end up having a massive crash in Germany. One that I shouldn't have walked away from it. You know, I slid off the side of a mountain and end up having to get, you know, I broke my back and totally smashed myself up. Yeah,
right. Rider error.
Totally, 100%. You know, I was doing like 140 mile an hour, knee down on the deck, going around a corner, just screwed it up. Low-sided the bike. The bike just lost traction, and I slid along the road under the Armco and out into the valley. Like, shouldn't have survived it, but it did. That didn't slow me down. Stupidly enough, that didn't slow me down. Fast forward. Well, I stopped when I hit the mountain, but fast forward. God, that was 2011. And I think it was 2000.
Why do you think for a second that didn't sort of?
I don't know. I still think I thought, well, that was just a freak accident. That's a one-off because I've been fine all the other time. Then I remember I used to commute in and out of London every single day, almost 7 days a week on the bike, and you know what London's like. You've been a courier in there. Things happen all the time, don't they? And then that one day, something happened, and I couldn't react in the time that I needed to, and I was plainly going a bit too quick. I maybe wasn't switched on enough, but anyway, I ended up getting smacked by a car, and then in the space of about 18 months, I think I had another 3, culminating in a nurse pulling out in front of me and me T-boning her car.
At least you're in good hands, I suppose.
I know, and that proper smashed me up. You know, I nearly lost my left arm because the nerve died for about 4 months. So it was like, shit, have I lost this arm? Thankfully, it came back online. But that one really woke me up. And I was just like, okay, I'm not the daddy here. I'm not invincible. And that massively slowed me down to the point now where I don't really go riding with those old mates that I'm still really pally with, but I don't often go riding with them because I'm the slow one. They're all way quicker. And I'm just like, I can't go around corners the way you go around corners because if there's something around the corner, I can't stop. You know,
are they being a bit risky though? Is there time waiting to come?
I don't know, because like they've always ridden like that. For decades, they've ridden like that, and
but that's another thing, though, isn't it? If you, I don't know. If you go through a section of road, 99 times, and you've never had a problem, you think, well, that's it's fine. I'm doing it just right. And then on that 100th time, I mean, back in the day when I was a bit. I was a lot sort of, my ambition exceeded my ability by a country mile. I used to have, do you know what a Rickman chassis is? I used to have a Rickman Z1000 Kawasaki, right? They used to make, back then, Japanese bikes didn't handle that well. They make great engines, things like Z900s, Z1000s, CB750s, more a bit later, GS1000, etc. They started to get better, but if you put them in a proper chassis, like a Harris or a Bimota or a Rickman chassis, like the one I had, they suddenly handled. It was an amazing thing. But I had this 20-mile ride to work, right, via a fantastic country road for quite a bit of it. And it was like my own private TT.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a section, I think I explained earlier, that blind rises weren't to be feared. But there was a certain section that involved the blind bit. But I'd been through it 100 times before, and it'd been fine.
Yeah.
One day I came around it, there's a combine harvester with a car behind it, right? And I come over this blind crest, and I see this, and it scaring me now. There's no way that I'm stopping. It's plan B immediately. Plan A cannot be executed because this combine harvester will execute you, son.
Yep.
Anyway, so I get past both of them. I had no option but to go by them, but then the car comes the other way, and then he just about stuffs it in the hedge to make room for me. And I get through, and it shook me up so badly. I had to stop to have a good old shake and just calm down a few miles later. Anyway, the bloke in the car behind the combine harvester, he's giving it the proper wanker sign. He should have gone out and punched me. It was ridiculous. And I just had to put my hands up,
Mm-hmm.
But yes, but I'll tell you what, my bravado level was so high then that only affected me for that day or two.
Mm-hmm.
And like you just carry this arrogance. I mean, confidence is a very, very, very important thing on a bike, isn't it? I mean, if you thought about the reality of what could happen all of the time, I think you'd be dissuaded from riding.
Yeah, you need to be relaxed on the bike, don't you? In order for the bike to do its thing and the tyres to do its thing, you've got to be relaxed. But I think it's key to be aware of your own limitations and your actual abilities, not your perceived abilities.
Yeah, and you can't change physics either, can you? You can't go over a blind rise and expect there not to be some stationary traffic over the top. And blind corners, just because you can't see the hazard doesn't mean to say it doesn't exist. I mean,
aye. But then I'm a big advocate of people having the option to choose to ride the way they want to ride. I have this argument about things like the TT. Whenever you mention the TT, or whenever I do a video about the TT, you always get people going, I think it's really selfish for those racers to put their families and the public through it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, everyone involved knows the risk. Everybody, from the spectator to the racer to the marshals, everyone knows that risk. And give them the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, can I say this, Bruce? I mean,
of course.
I've raced and crashed there. In fact, I had 2 races and I crashed in both of them. So I may be some authority on this risk and danger of the TT business. But do you know what? I've had a bit of an up and down relationship with the TT. I think everybody admits to loving and hating it to some degree at some point. But the thing I like about it most of all, and I think the main reason why I want it to continue forever is because it goes, fuck you to all those who were trying to sort of polish the world and make it more civilized.
100%. Yeah.
They're just, what's the word? They're just sanitizing the thing beyond, they're just so risk averse, aren't they? They're trying to make it. They're just trying to make the world this safe, cuddly place.
Absolutely. And if it's not your cup of tea, fine. You don't need to watch it. You don't need to get involved with it. But there's lots of us out there that enjoy that enjoy pushing ourselves, that enjoy watching other people pushing themselves.
It's called being a human being, isn't it?
Yeah.
Certain human beings. Do you know what? There's a chap called Stephen Nolan. He's a presenter on BBC Radio 5 Live. It's a station that I listen to quite a bit. And last year, after there were 6 deaths, and it was a really bad TT, he hosted a radio show, and its theme was, what the hell's going on? This event that kills people is being allowed to function and to carry on. This is wrong, Anyway, Matt Oxley, who's I'm a big fan of, and Ryan Farquhar phoned up to give their 2 pence. I dare say the researchers tracked them down for their opinion on matters. And I wanted to phone up and just say, look, Stephen, and I've got a lot of time for this guy. I like listening to him. I just want to say, look, I don't think you're ever going to understand this because you're risk averse. You don't do the risky bit, It doesn't appeal to you, And on that basis, you think anyone who risk does appeal to is a bit wacko. And anybody who organises or presides over this is equally, guilty of or liable to a lot of criticism. And I just felt like saying, look, you're talking about a subject that you've got no understanding of. It's called risk. And to some people, risk is appealing. It appeals to. I mean, it's funny. Motorcycles are dangerous, you could say, quite easily. They carry an element of risk. And I admit to liking that because I like the challenge that the risk offers. I like sort of managing it. In order to reduce the risk of getting hurt, you need to ride a motorcycle as well as you can, don't you?
Absolutely.
And I like trying to do that. I mean, I've been off-roading on my V-Strom 800 today. I've just put some of those Dunlop Raid tyres on and I want to give them a shot. Yeah. And I'm a bit wary of riding adventure bikes off-road because if you've tried proper enduro bikes, you realise that these are big, fat, heavy, poorly suspended bags of shite by comparison. That's not the case. And
is that the official journalistic term?
Well, it's mine. But I've seen people like, do you know who Chris Birch is?
Yeah.
I
don't know him, but I know the name.
Yeah, but have you seen him riding these 1290 Super Adventure S's? In fact, there'll be Adventure R's that he rides. It's a big, fat, heavy adventure bike. I know it's made by KTM and it's got decent kit on it, but it's still a big, fat, heavy adventure bike. He rides that like a 250 EXC. He wheelies it, he slides it, he just jumps it. And if you're that good, it's not so bad. But today, I'm riding this V-Strom going, fuck, man, am I staying on this or what,
Really?
Yeah, because it was a lot better after I'd been on it for an hour. And thankfully, I was riding most of the trails that I rode, which I know well, were dry and grippy. But the trouble with off-roading is you only need a 10-foot section that's a bit sloppy with mud or whatever, and you just, you might go down. The thing about adventure bikes that I don't like, another thing about adventure bikes that I don't like is they get damaged quite badly when you topple off them, don't they, compared to an enduro bike. When you fall off an enduro bike, you just laugh, kick it straight. It's designed to deal with a crash, isn't it? It's slim, it's got no sticky out bits, lots of bodywork. The bodywork costs buttons. You go down on an adventure bike, you start catching a lot of bodywork that's expensive. You rip mirrors off and indicators and end cans, or you taint them enough to devalue them a hell of a lot, Plus, they get shitty dirty. But I'll tell you the funny thing, though, Bruce. I just thought, I had one of those, my God, how good is motorcycling? Do you know what? The best thing I can say about these tyres is I like them, but I like what they've been now allowing me to do on this bike. I can now go off-road on it as well, on general trails.
They're 50-50, aren't they, the Dunlop Raids? Yeah.
But I can do the tarmac bit, and then I can just turn off. I mean, I turned off on the first trail, and I thought, man, this is why I love this. I like the challenge, and I like the fact that there's no bugger about. Nobody's going to pull out in front of you. There just isn't that sort of conflict that you get with traffic. I mean, if you want to get away from the trauma of traffic and all the hazards that it offers, I would recommend trail riding. Just do it. Organise it to happen in your life from now. Or go on one of these schools. Go to Pavey School. Go and see Extons. Go and ride other people's bikes. And just realise that motorcycling still has a lot to offer. I mean, when I first started off-roading, I wouldn't say I was bored with road riding, but I did a hell of a lot of it. and the novelty had worn off to some degree.
Okay.
But I start off-roading more often, and just like I was in the 70s when I woke up to ride my SS50 or my RD250, and instantly became excited at the prospect. That's how I felt about. I had to get up really quite early, on a Sunday morning in the middle of winter sometimes to ride. Always worth togging up for getting out there and doing it. Fantastic thing. It was a renaissance for me in motorcycling. It just completely and utterly renewed my enthusiasm for two-wheel travel,
Yeah, I've started to do a bit more of it actually now, and I have this. I made a rod for my own back ages ago when I was like, I anytime anyone mentioned off road, I'd be like, no, what you want to do that for?
Me too.
And I made I sort of made a big deal about it, so everyone was just like, oh, you hate off road then? And I don't hate off road. I just don't know what I'm doing. So,
but you think you hate it, don't you? That's the reality of it.
It's just because I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm not comfortable. So I'm trying to push myself to do more of it now.
Yeah. When you don't know what you're doing, it's only isn't it? You don't quite know what you're doing at this moment. You will learn, and you will. Once upon a time, you couldn't walk, for Christ's sake. You kept falling over. I used to say this to the kids at the Haslam school, how are you feeling? Oh, shit myself. Don't worry about that, you're in good hands. We'll take our time, we'll learn it, and we'll, learn that it's a bit of a science. And once you get certain things into your head, you'll be able to do it. And your fears will be allayed. Just like I used to say, you could walk once. There's lots of things that you couldn't do. It's just a matter of, trying them and experiencing them and learning, sometimes the harder way. But once you have learned and you can do, Christ, I regret, well, as you should do, only the things that I haven't done. And I fear not having tried off-roading. Mates used to recommend it to me, I reckon, for a good 15, possibly 20 years, before I actually had to go. Like you, I just thought, that'd be horrible. I'm going to get dirty, I'm going to fall off a lot, I'm going to get knackered. And as long as there was a 150 horsepower superbike to jump on, that was always going to be a better option,
Yeah.
That probably wasn't quite as powerful back then, but and then I tried it under the right circumstances, and a light came on, and suddenly everything they'd ever said made sense.
Yeah. So I'm starting to enjoy it now. I'm starting to enjoy my time when I'm on there. I can't
tell you what lies before you. You can have the most fantastic time.
I'm off to Morocco actually in like a week and a bit. I'm off to Morocco for the rest of July on the GSs, believe it or not.
Permission to be truly envious. Are you going to do a bit of off-road in there?
It's 80% off-road. Most of it is off-road. So we're going all the way right down, Marzuga, right down in the sort of southeast.
Yeah.
So we're eventually aiming for that, do a bit in the Sahara, and then, well, it won't be much in the Sahara because I've been down there on the GSs before, and the second you take them out into the Sahara, they just sink in the sand, don't they?
Yeah. I think you could probably enjoy a slightly smaller bike, That's why I like that Tenere 700. I think it's a real true dual purpose bike. I would cover the old.
It's 14. I've got a mate that's out there at the moment. He's got a Husky 350. And he keeps sending me pictures, and it's like 49 degrees, 48 degrees. He's like, Jesus, it's hot. So it's going to be hot.
You won't be liking your beard too much there, will you?
I know. Yeah, I know. It's going to be hot. I might come back a few pounds lighter. You never know.
Yeah, and close the sunroof, fire a hat or something.
Yeah, definitely. Right, we better get onto some questions here. Otherwise, we're never going to.
Can I stop for a fuel break?
Of course. Yeah. And if you need a toilet break, feel free.
Yeah. Okay, let's do that. Right.
Back in a sec, folks.
Yeah, no bother.
Sorry to interrupt, folks. I will be quick. It is sponsor shout-out time. We are sponsored, as always, by Ultimate Add-ons. Bit of a blurb to read out for them. Ultimate Add-ons are the premium manufacturer of mobile phone and action camera mounting solutions for motorcycles, with a kit for any bike and a proven track record of creating products that keep your devices safe, secure, and easily accessible. The Ultimate Add-ons product range is ideal for any rider, from the commuter to the round-the-world adventurer. Why shell out on an expensive GPS system when you could use your smartphone, keeping it charged and within easy reach to take photos of your travels at the same time? Ultimate Add-on's waterproof, shockproof and dustproof tough cases are available for all flagship smartphone models and are designed by riders for riders. Find out why Ride Magazine gives Ultimate Add-ons their coveted Best Buy certification. Keep riding this winter with Ultimate Add-ons. It's all about the journey. Now, folks, if you head to ultimateaddons.com and use the code TeapotOne10, you'll get 10% off. I've got an affiliate link for them as well, which I'll leave down below. So if you listen to the podcast, check out the show notes. If you're watching the vid, have a look at the vid description. And obviously with the affiliate, I also make a slight commission off that. Costs you nothing more. So a massive thanks to Ultimate Add-ons. We are also sponsored by, as always, the Influencer Store. Influencer Store handle all my merch. You can see up there, I've got loads of hats, there's hoodies, there's all sorts of things. So if you head to TeapotOne.com, head to the shop, you can check out all the merchandise, and that is all handled by the folks over at the Influencer Store. The Influencer Store helps you build your brand, big or small, providing you with a solution and apparel. We help you to increase your fan base while supporting you with starting your own influencer clothing line with nothing more than just an idea or design, and there are no hidden costs. For more info, come check us out at theinfluencerstore.co.uk or drop us an email at online@influencerstore.co.uk for more information. Again, there'll be links down below, folks. Lastly, a big shout out to all of you over in the clan, over on Patreon. As always, folks, I keep saying this, but it is true. I literally could not do this full time without your support over there. So a huge, heartfelt thank you from me. If you'd like to go that extra mile and help support both the podcast and the main Teapot One vid channel, then head to patreon.com/Teapot1. Again, links down below. A massive thanks to each and every one of you who's listening or watching the podcast. I love doing the podcast. I really do. And I love getting all the feedback from you, from all the various different guests that we've had. If you could be so kind, on whatever platform it is that you're listening or watching the podcast, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify in particular, you can rate the podcast on there. Obviously, a 5-star rating goes a long way to help boost the podcast up through the ranks. And if you're watching the video, just give it a like, give it a comment, and both video and audio, if you share that with everyone that you think might be interested, that would be a massive help. All right, folks, let's get back to it.
Right, the dreaded questions. Now, you've got some knowledge of them, I take it.
I've had a quick look through, just trying to...
how difficult are they?
Yeah, and to try and scale how many questions there are, you'll not be surprised to hear there's a lot of questions. So,
okay, go on.
Sit back, get comfortable. Right, folks, we'll start always, as we always do, with the clan over on Patreon. So it's patreon.com/Teapot1. First one, Chris Owens. Hi guys, hope you're both well. To both of you. If you could turn one woman into a bike to ride, what woman would it be and what bike? We're not politically correct here, Mossy, don't worry.
I'm too busy with the idea of riding the woman and not converting her in any shape or form.
Who is your poster? Who is your poster girl?
Rita Ora.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right, okay.
Just possesses that. I mean, listen, it's she's at the head of a fairly long list, but no, there's something about her. She presses a lot of buttons, and in fact, I saw a documentary on her actually, and I was really quite pleased to see that she's from a fairly normal background. You know, there's no privilege or head start being given to her. She's a bloody hard worker, but yeah, just real sexy woman, like, you know. It's funny. I used to work for a model agency as a courier, and you're just surrounded by utter honeys. But some of them are not especially sexy. You know, they just look like dolls, if you like.
Aye, they haven't got that air about them. Yeah.
Some of the most absolutely beautiful women I don't find as appealing as I do the likes of Rita Ora, because they look just a bit too a bit too perfect, a bit too plastic almost, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so what do? We convert Rita Ora into a bike.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, you can take it that way, or how Rita Ora is to you, how she makes you feel, what bike does that to you?
Yeah. I might need to review it. Fucking hell, this right. Chris Owen.
Chris Owens, yeah.
Chris Owen, I don't like you one bit because that is a very good and clever question. That's probably one of those questions that I needed to be asked about 2 weeks ago to give me enough time to answer properly.
Yeah, I see, but this just gets your instant thoughts.
Okay, all right. Let's put it another way, right? My most ideal bike. It's funny, I was asked this question the other day, and I think it is the Tenere 700. This is the bike that I want to be able to do as much as possible with, you know? Yeah, Rita Ora fits into that category as well, I think. The great thing about the Tenere 700 is because you can get dirty with it. I'm definitely thinking of Rita Ora again, I don't know. I like stuff that I can use, you know?
Uh-huh.
Right.
We're getting a real insight into Mossy here.
Well, look, right, a Panigale, a fancy V4 Ducati sports bike, Panigale, whatever spec, would be no good to me because it's only really good at one thing, isn't it? It's only really good at performing to a very high level. Amazing bike, not dissing it. But I want something that I can just... Listen, I rely on a bike for transport now, only a bike. I don't know the form of transport. I know I mentioned my Sprinter van earlier, but I've stopped driving that. That V-Strom 800 is now my sole form of transport. And I asked for that bike because at its launch straight away, I knew after just a few miles, this is what I want, you know? Mm-hmm. And I like stuff that I can use that isn't too intimidating, that is good at going to Tesco as it is to Timbuktu, you know? Mm-hmm. So hopefully Rita Ora can be the equivalent of a Tenere 700. Look good, perform reliably. I can take her anywhere, anytime. Emphasis on the expression take, I think, there. So, yeah, does that make sense?
I'm sure she's flattered.
Does that make sense? Does the answer to my question?
Yeah, it does. But, like, when I read that question, I'm not thinking about a utilitarian vehicle. Like, for the woman, for me, it's probably someone like Gemma Atkinson, similar to you. She seems down to earth, gorgeous, beautiful, sexy, down to earth. Yeah. Seems attainable, but obviously not. You know, she just like she looks normal.
Have you got a mirror? Have you got a mirror in your house?
Yeah, this is what I mean about seems attainable, but not. But for the bike, I want that cocaine addicted supermodel. I want looks amazing, an amazing ride, really get your rocks off. You know, I'm not really fussed about taking it down the supermarket, you know what I mean? So for me, it would be something like, I think so far out of the bikes that I've tried, there's one bike that really grabbed me, and it made me, when I walked away, I'd turn around and look at it. And I couldn't wait to get back on it. And it's the latest Super Duke R. Right, it just lit a fire with me. I was just like, I rode that bike and I felt like 16 again. I felt like I did when I first started riding a bike. It was just like, I cannot wait to ride this bike. And then it broke down, but I still love it. You know, I still love that bike.
Do you know what? I was just going to say, I don't think I've ridden an orange bike that I don't like, you know.
Mm.
And
they're the most engaging ones out there.
Man, right, whoever's making those guys at the factory just knows how to press your buttons, don't they? I mean, you know, when you switch them on and they say ready to race on the dash, it should say ride like a twat. Because that's exactly what happens to me when I get on the vast majority.
Totally.
But, and this is one thing that you've just said there, it broke down. What broke? Was it a press bike?
It was, it was from KTM UK,
What was wrong with it?
I'd organised it. What it was, I'd had lots of electrical issues that hadn't stopped me riding, but they're just throwing errors up. In fact, I've had that with every KTM. They just throw errors up on the dash. But what killed it was there's a 10p washer that keeps your oil and your coolant apart, and that failed. So I think either the coolant got in the oil or the oil got in the coolant, and it failed, and it just dumped everything on the floor.
Do you know what? It's probably my favourite brand, but I wouldn't dare buy one because of the aforementioned.
Mm-hmm.
And they remind me of how Ducatis were when I started being a journo, sort of 95, 94 onwards. Back then, you couldn't trust Dukes either, and they've really smartened their act up, haven't they?
Have they?
You know, well, I think that they're a load better. I've not had a Duke go wrong on me, you know. I take it you're going to challenge that.
Yeah, I've got my group of mates that I used to ride with all the time, and now I'm the slow one. They've just been away in Spain. They've just been away in the Picos again. Two of the boys recently bought the V2 Multistrada each.
Okay, yeah.
And loved it. We're singing the praises about it. They've gone out into Spain, and one of the lads, Mooley, his broke down on like day 3.
Yeah.
And Ducati UK have been horrendous. Like, he's been waiting over a week, and they've had to abandon the bike in a garage in Spain, waiting for Ducati to sort the life out and go, right, yeah, this is a warranty thing.
So what sort of thing's gone wrong with it? Something to stop it starting, or just stop it running?
The bike broke down, and it had to get recovered to a local garage. I can't remember what the thing was. I can't remember what it was, but I remember when the boys told me what it was a blatant warranty issue. You know, it was. It's the bike's fairly new. It's like 8 months old, and Ducati have just not sorted it out yet, and just left them like. They've not updated them. They've not offered them any help whatsoever. You know, with BMW, something happens, you phone up that roadside assist. They come and pick your bike up. Sometimes they'll even give you a bike to replace it. They look after you. So, you know.
Do you know what?
You just don't get that elsewhere.
I truly believe BMWs are not quite as reliable as the reputation might say.
No, they're not.
But hang on. But that service that you're offered to compensate you for your difficulties is just fantastic. I mean, isn't it funny? You can have all sorts of shit go wrong, but if somebody comes along and offers you some assistance straight away, you just calm, aren't you, instantly? If somebody can, write things to some degree, and I'll let you carry on with your riding, then you almost forgive them instantly, don't you?
I always say this, like, for me, I don't buy a bike and expect nothing to ever go wrong with it, especially if you're putting miles in. If you're riding that thing every day, or you're doing a lot of miles each year, you're going to have issues. Things are going to happen. Yeah. And for me, it's how that's dealt with.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That's what matters to me. That's what makes a brand to me, is the customer service that comes with, like, what loyalty are they showing you for you trusting their brand, and spending your money to buy their brand.
Spending a lot of money because they're not cheap.
But this is it, like the big adventure bike. Well, even most bikes are. Yeah, most bikes are upwards in the high teens now, into the 20s. Yeah. So it's not a cheap thing anymore, is it? And I think BMW are just second to none in terms of the customer service. So I've thought about going KTM. I even thought about, pushing a boat and going Ducati and going for something like a Multistrada, but it's just insane money. But seeing up my friends and people I know, seeing their experiences of ownership of those, I'm just like, I can't be arsed with that.
I'm a bit surprised to hear you say that, Bruce. I thought they'd sussed the job out, and I thought the backup was good as well.
Mooley's had two Ducatis. He had a Monster a year or two ago, and after 600 miles, the engine casing was falling apart. Like all the paint and the metal was just all coming away on the engine casing. And Ducati turned around to him and said, "Well, you've ridden that in the rain." And like this, Ducati have said you've ridden that in the rain, and he's turned around and he's meticulous. Mooley is meticulous with his bikes. He rides and he washes.
I mean,
and he's like,
Do they think it's made of sugar or something? I mean,
well, it was the fact that somebody in Ducati customer service chose to say that. You're just like, I mean, what are we in 1970? It's ridiculous. Yeah. You can't ride a bike in the rain.
Mind you, a bit like the government. If enough people are happy, and the sales figures show that they are, and stories like the one you've told are a minority. If people, people getting upset are in the minority, then you can just carry on, can't you? But I am amazed at the level of service, and I'm talking about being a consumer of all sorts of goods here. I'm amazed how badly you can get treated by some people. They don't give a fuck once they've got your money.
Yeah, I like to try lots of different like dealerships, even though I'm part of the BMW brand now, being a GS owner, I like to go to lots of different BMW dealerships just to see what the service is like, because like my local ones, obviously they know me, they know I've got a channel and I've got social media and the influence that comes with all around that. So I think you do get treated differently. I think they maybe do dot the I's and cross the T's a bit more.
Yeah, I was going to mention that earlier when we were talking about how you might be perceived. I don't think being recognised as a bike journal necessarily helps you, does it? It helps you a lot in terms of people, falling over backwards to help you,
opening doors and stuff.
Yeah, but the problem with it is you don't get to know what it's really like to be an ordinary motorcyclist. I mean, I can extend that further as well. If my bike breaks down, what do? I phone somebody up and say, your bike's broken down. And they come and get it. They sort it, If I want some new kit, I just phone up and just say, can I have that? And you usually get it. And it can give you a very distorted and sort of blinkered view of what it's actually like to be a motorcyclist. Listen, I was a biker for many, many years before I became a journo. And because I got a bit concerned about this chance of being a bit actually quite far removed from reality because I was a journo, I bought a VF8 R800 of my own just to see what it would be like, And sure enough, it broke down once. Rec went on it. And I had to go through the motions to get it sorted. It was my problem, And I found out, obviously, how long spares take, what you have to do, how much they cost. And it was very unfortunate that I didn't end up riding it that much because I was too busy with test bikes and stuff. But I think sometimes you can get a very distorted and just too blinkered view of what it's like to be a motorcycle. Well, you lose touch completely, don't you, if you don't have to buy.
It's weird. It's weird because, like for me, I got into YouTube because I had that opinion about journalism, bike journalism in the UK. I'd look at like you guys writing your reviews of stuff, and I was not suspicious, but I was very aware of the fact that, you were away at launches and you had all the opportunities that you just spoke about. Yeah. And I was like, that's not real bike ownership. And all of a sudden YouTube was there, and it allowed people like me, just normal folk, not say that you're not normal, but you know what I mean? Like no connection to the industry, just a normal person. Yeah. You can get a bike. You just go, I still do it to this day. You just turn up at a dealership and any chance I could take this bike out, your demo, boom, go out and take that out or whatever, and I think that's probably why YouTube, the bike industry and YouTube did so well initially, is because people related to you. People were like, you're just a normal person. Yeah. But it's totally changed now. It's totally changed now in that now, because YouTube and social media is now seen as a reputable format for the PR teams to be involved with, for the bike magazines, for the professional element. I'm full-time at this now. It's my full-time job is doing YouTube and podcasts and all this sort of stuff. And there's so many of people out there doing it that it's sort of changed now in that, people are doing sponsored content and people like me or
that's not healthy, is it? That's
no, I don't. Because I now look at a lot of influencers who I look and I just think, you've got no what's your oh God, what's the word? Like what's your
raison d'etre or
what is your
what's your
the word's just
background,
the tip
what's
of
your
my
credibility,
credibility. What's your pedigree within the bike industry to give you any weight to have that opinion on, what are your qualifications to do it? Part of me is like that now, where I'm like, well, who are you to go and do this and review this bike? But it's weird because that's exactly what, journalists used to think of us early YouTubers. And now here's me as like a 5 years, 6 years down the line in YouTube. I'm looking at the new lot and I'm thinking
hang on a minute. That 5 or 6 years of experience of riding lots of different things and being connected to a lot of different things in the industry, which you normally wouldn't get access to, that's your apprenticeship served, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
But then some people are just picking up the camera and going, I can do this,
But that's exactly what I did initially. And they're just me 5 years ago. So they're now giving their opinion of that totally fresh person, and it's
but I suppose in
you know what I mean? It's giving people that option now, isn't it? To get the professional journalists, the sort of old sweaty YouTuber, and then the new.
You're a professional journalist. By the definition, that you earn money from, presenting and writing about bikes. It's hard to decide, who's got the most credibility. I mean, hopefully the market will decide itself, and what they like will prove the most popular. But I do see a lot of people that really don't have too much in the way of credibility. They can say it's dead easy to say everything's fantastic, but it's much more difficult to say why it's fantastic or qualify in some sort of context. However,
100%, yeah.
However, if they are popular, who the hell am I? Look, it's difficult. We like a fast hit, don't we? And I think one of the things about YouTube and influence is that they just give a very concise viewpoint, and a lot of people just want a bit of a takeaway, if you like, rather than anything more in depth. Look, I do it sometimes. I open a 6-page test, and I know that it's got to be good and written by a very well qualified person. And I've probably chose a better example would be if I open a 30-minute video that I know has been presented by someone who knows their audience. I just go, fuck, 30 minutes. Have I got that?
Yeah.
Have I got that spare?
Yeah.
Just give me there's a lot to be said about maybe it just needs to be restructured a bit. But here's something to put things into context a lot more. During a conversation I had with Nevesy, they were looking at MCN. They were looking for a new tester. Fucking hell, they were inundated with people who didn't have a clue, no background, no riding experience, no writing experience, wanted ridiculous money. He said it was very, very difficult. In the end, they've got Carl Stevens. They nicked him. He's a guy who has learned the ropes and he has done some stuff. But that's what we're facing these days. That there isn't. There's the qualified journalist, for want of a better term, and I'm using that term loosely, is an endangered species. You could argue.
Yeah. I it makes me cringe now to say, but I am the sort of person in my reviews of bikes. I don't know why a bike does what it does. I don't know why the suspension does that. I don't know why the brakes make the lever feel that way or the bike act that way in it. I just say how that bike makes me feel. And I know that really grips the bollocks of a lot of journalists. I know, and I apologize for that, but I've never ever maintained to say that I'm a journalist.
Right. Okay. Let me interrupt again, Bruce. If you're right, I rode Rossi's Grand Prix bike, right? I am not qualified to ride that bike. So I made sure I said that right at the beginning. You know, I'm Chris Moss, an ordinary guy about to do something very extraordinary.
An ordinary guy.
Well, I am.
TT racer, journalist.
TT crasher. All I'm saying is, if you present your stuff if you go on a ride of a bike at a launch, or you ride something for a short period of time, and you say that it's just a taster, you know, this is my impression. This is my early impression. We'll let you know more when we ride the bike again in the UK in more familiar circumstances and for longer.
Yeah.
If you state quite clearly at the launch, this is just a taster, that's fine. Or if you say, look, I'm not a Grand Prix rider, or if you say, look, I'm not the fastest, most experienced man on earth, that's fine. You are probably more representative of the people you talk to than I am.
Yeah.
You could argue. You can sometimes be overqualified, if you like, or start turning attention to details that people aren't really interested in. I mean, look, today's motorcyclist is a very different customer, isn't he? He doesn't ride much. He's got a lot of money. You know, he likes GSs. Sometimes he doesn't necessarily.
Best bike in the world. Yeah,
it's a fucking fantastic bike. And you don't know how painful it is for me to admit that.
No, I'm the same. I just fucking hate them. Then I rode one. Yeah.
I'll tell you that the only problem I have with them, there's just too many of the studding things.
Oh, totally.
Do you know what? I did a bit of that NC 500 loop up in Scotland, and I was convinced that 70 or more % of bikes I saw going the other way were fucking GSs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ruined their sort of rarity value. They're not a special thing, are they? They're a brilliant thing, and they're worth every bit of the money. And every time I ride one, every single time I ride the next version, I still have to go, fucking hell, yeah, it's really good, this, you know? I wish they'd make a bit of a shit one and give me something to talk about. But they're just...
Well, the 1300's coming.
Yeah, but and guess what? It'll be great, won't it?
Of course it will. Yeah. I've already got my money down. Yep.
Have you? When is it due, by the way? Is it late September?
28th of September is the launch over in Munich, isn't it, at the new BMW place?
Oh, is it?
And then what I'm hearing unofficially is it will hopefully be in the showrooms ready to wheel out the showroom by November.
And how many deposits do you think are down on it? I bet they'll not be able to make the buggers fast enough to begin with.
Yeah, every BMW dealership and every BMW salesperson that I've been speaking to over the last 6 months are all like, yeah, got money down already. You know, 500 quid puts you in the queue. So I'm not at the top of the queue.
Before I leave the GS subject, at least, and it's something you always come back to, I do think, let me say this, I think it is the most iconic bike ever produced in my, not lifetime, my journey, and not even in my biking lifetime. And there's been some amazing bikes, hasn't there?
Yeah. I think it's had the biggest impact, hasn't it, in the biking community as a whole.
I don't know if impact's the right word. The impact sort of suggests an absolute wow factor from the beginning. No, listen, we'll use that word impact just because I can't find a better one for the time being. It is. I mean, it's iconic, isn't it? It has touched so many people and enhanced the lives of so many folk. But in the UK, at least, it took quite a while before people figured it. I mean, the market had to change to suit the bike, really, didn't it?
Yeah, I think we all had to get that little bit older, didn't we? And we were just a bit tired of being cramped on sports bikes.
Exactly,
and you're just like, oh, right, okay.
To see its value, I think, in the UK at least, the market had to change. Everyone who had one knew they were on a good thing. I got an 1150 GS from a dealer, you know, up in Nottingham, Pidcocks, and they let me have one for about 6 months. And I just went, bloody hell. this is a very good bit of kit to live with here. And I was still getting on fancy bikes like R1s and Blades and stuff and having a great time on them. But there was something about that BMW that felt a bit home-like, you know. And I'd give it to other lads to ride. And one guy in particular, really fast rider, but with an open mind. And he had a go of it, and he said, "Bloody hell, not shit, that is it." You know, I think I think everyone who rides one just goes, "Bloody Nora." You know, everyone who rides one who hasn't had any previous experience just really instantly gets woken up to the fact that this is a bit of a special bit of kit. It shouldn't work, should it?
No,
I mean,
no, it shouldn't do what it does.
Pavey runs them, right? And the BMW Off-Road Skills School. And he told me when he first got into bed with BMW, they sent a couple of crated R50 GSs, right? We never got the R50, the 850 version, but he uncrated it and he looked at it and he went, you know, what am I doing? This is wrong. This will never, ever work. This is bad business sense. This has no future. And then he said he rode it, and he knows what he's doing, doesn't he? And he just sort of went, bloody Norris. And he couldn't believe the balance of the thing and its manners off-road, you know, and just how, despite the fact it's a big, heavy thing, just how controllable and manageable it was. And, yeah, he's gone on to do very good things with GS, hasn't he?
He has. Right, let's stop talking about GS because half of the audience has just gone to sleep now. Right, next one. I mean, that's question one. Hang
on, that is another relevant remark about GSs, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
Conversation about GSs continue to sleep. Yeah, trouble sleeping, go to a GS owners club. You'll be fucking off like a light within seconds.
Totally. Right, next one. Richie Vida.
Hopefully it's easier. What's his name?
Richie Vida. Oh, yeah, he's another YouTuber.
I know he is, you Yorkshire fucker. He's a likeable chap, actually. You Yorkshire fucker.
He's all right, and he's all right. No, he says, haha, Mossy is a great bloke. He had us all crying in Greece at the V-Strom launch. Sat in a really swanky restaurant, and he's had a few. We all had. And he's genuinely interested in the answer to this very important question that he's going around the whole table with. If you could, would you? Ask him this and see if he remembers. I'll let him tell you exactly was that he was asking.
Right, right. If you could knock yourself off, would you? Fucking too right, I would.
Of course you would. You'd never leave the house.
It'd be a lot fucking more convenient, wouldn't it? I mean,
it'd be cheaper. Listen, you wouldn't need, you wouldn't get tied up with all these houses and stuff, would you?
I mean, sex is a great thing, but you can't beat the real thing, can you?
I'm married, mate. I've forgotten what sex is.
Do you know what? I heard Mackenzie tell a story. There was an Australian rider called Rob Phillis, right? Early days of World Superbike, good rider. I think Australian Superbike champion, and then he came over to do pretty well in World Supers in those first few years, you know. Anyway, his party piece was noshing himself off at parties.
No way. At parties?
At parties, yeah. He was Australian. He didn't he didn't hold back.
So uncouth, that lot. Convict, you know.
So, Richie, did I actually say that in that swanky restaurant? Doesn't sound like me
partly so.
at all.
Yeah, you're normally so reserved, aren't you?
I have my moments when I'm let off the lead and I might be judged as less than reserved.
Well, Rich said yes too, by the way. So,
yes.
I think anyone that says they wouldn't, you're lying.
I think
you're lying.
It's probably best to do that poll secretly, but I reckon there'll be a lot of crosses in that box.
The survey said, ding.
Fucking curiosity would lead me to at least have a go. I don't know. I've got no idea what it tastes like. So, oh dear, it's getting messy.
Next question. Cheers for that, Rich. Next question. Brian McManus. Brian is one of the drunkards that came up to you last year, I think it was, at the ABR and said, you've got to get on this podcast.
Oh, right.
He's one of them.
Brian? You say Brian?
Brian, yeah. Brian McManus.
Yeah, Brian, say hello.
It was Brian and Mike.
I'm saying hello to Brian and Mike, actually, because, I mean, can we tell the viewers the story? They came up to me and they were really good, and we had a good old laugh, and we took some daft pictures and abused each other and fucking just talked bollocks, which I'm very good at. And they said, do you want to be on the TeapotOne podcast, you know? And
Time available on all podcasting platforms. Yeah.
And I said, I'd love to do that. And they knew you, didn't they, quite well?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Anyway, so I thought it's on. And then I hear fuck all. And I just think, you fucking snotty piece of work. Not good enough for you, am I? I see. Confronted by the reality of having me on your podcast and you fucking turned it back. Well,
I bottled it.
And then 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, the last ABR.
Yeah, it was only 2 weeks ago, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You come into Dunlop's little... do you know what? I nearly called it a hospitality suite. You could get tea and water, couldn't you? It was a caravan. It gave you the impression that they're making about 75 quid a week from tyre sales. And I just said, hang on a minute, I was supposed to be on your fucking podcast. What happened? And there'd been an issue. I think
you never replied to my bloody email, so I thought, he doesn't want to come on.
It had got into my spam folder, obviously, Bruce. And anyway, look, right now I'm enjoying this. And when I met you and we resolved our non-communication issue, I was really pleased.
Me too, mate. Me too. Right, Brian says, anyway, hi to one and all.
Hello to those chaps. They were good value.
Yeah, they're good lads. Good lads. Hope all is well in your world. My question is for Mossy. Having been on many bike launches, what is the standout, funniest, or weirdest thing that has happened? Thanks for the great content you guys produce. Keep up the great work.
Do you know what? Right, I have fucking been on a lot of them, you know. It's funny. Like I say, when I did a bit of research for this, I just thought, well, I've done that, written that. Fucking hell, I've done a bit, you know. But... of all the launches I've been on, there was one that really stood out for fucking... Honestly, you couldn't write this. Okay, let's start. Yamaha Thunder Ace and Thunder Cat launches, right? It was about a 5-day gig. It was must have been the back end of 95.
5 days.
Or early 96. I think it was 5 days. I mean, we had a good, maybe 4. Certainly a long day to get there.
It was a good launch.
Well, it was for some. Right, here's the deal. We fly to Cape Town, right, to ride in South Africa, road and track. Never been there before. Sit on the plane with Matt Oxley on the way out. He's my most favourite journalist. He's the guy that I salute. I really like his work. Anyway, so I have a good chat with him. Jeff Turner's there. Jeff Turner is the PR man by which all other PR men are judged by, because he's the standard. Anyway, we get there, we stay in a nice place. The roads are great, but on day one, I think we're on the Thunder Cat, the 600 on day one. Matt Oxley goes under a four-wheel drive thing that's pulled out in front of him. He's lucky. If it had been a normal car at a normal height, he wouldn't have gone underneath it. I dare say he wouldn't have been with us. He nearly gets away with it, but he clips his leg on the way under it and snaps his femur. Anyway, so I'm by the side of the road offering him cigarettes and trying to sort of just cheer him up before he goes off to hospital and gets it pinned. That's the end of his launch, right? Mm-hmm. Then... I used to be able to ride quite fast, actually, and I did all right on that launch and sort of looked good on road, on track, enjoyed the bikes, enjoyed the launch. And then on the last night of the launch, it's quite traditional to drink even more beer. I'm giving the impression that journos are pissheads here. It's not true, actually. It's not true. Is it
Hang
true?
on. I've met a few of you. Yeah.
I
social.
Think
You're social creatures.
But when somebody thrusts a free drink in your direction, you rarely say no. But anyway, last night, bikes are done, photographed. Whoever needs to write about them has done. I don't think we did any of that shit back then. I'm doing it for MCN. I didn't write a word till I got home. Much different job back then, arguably better. But anyway, so everybody's getting wankered. And we'd retired, we'd had dinner, and we were just in the lounge of this very fancy place. And I see in the distance, a chap called Dan Harris, right? Used to be a journalist with Fast Bikes.
Mm-hmm.
He is with another chap called Phil West, who was writing for Bike Magazine at the time, I think. Anyway, they're struggling a bit, and I'm wondering what the kerfuffle is. Anyway, Phil, pissed up, has dived into the shallow end of the swimming pool of this hotel and hit the bottom and split his head open. Not funny.
No.
Fucking blood piss. He's holding it. It's coming out between his fingers, sort of thing. I'm exaggerating it there, but it's bloody. It's messy. He's
done a proper job.
Yeah. Anyhow, concierge bloke says, we've got an arrangement with a doctor who lives just around the corner. Just go there, Anyway, the doctor has essentially, I think, possibly been woken up by a couple of pissed up Brits. He's not really interested, and he puts a couple of sutures on it and sends Phil on his way. Dan Harris, and all credit to him, he's not happy with this, especially when Phil said, my neck's not right, man. It's hurting, it's taking quite a bit. They get a taxi and they go into Cape Town to the hospital. And gets an X-ray, and fucking hell, I don't know exactly that. I don't know what it'd have been like to realise just what the ramifications of what that bloody doctor said. But he essentially said, look, whoa, put him in a neck brace straight away. He said, you've broken your neck, and I'm telling you now, if you'd have sneezed or turned your head to one side sharply, game over from a walking point of view, You are that close. So they put an external fixator on his head. He stayed out there for about another 10 days. And so for those guys, it wasn't a good launch at all. Me, on the other hand, I befriended this girl who worked there, and
had a whale of a time.
Say again?
Had a whale of a time.
Well, I didn't need to bend down to nosh myself off. And that was the end of that. But do you know what? We flew home, and a poor bloody, I don't know if he was Italian or Dutch, he got killed on the launch. And this is something that's affected a few journals over the years. South Africa, they drive on the same side of the road, the left-hand side, as we do. So all these European guys stand a chance of getting that wrong. And I think he was wheeling a bike, and he's gone into a car and got killed.
Oh, shush. Wow.
So, that is easily the most memorable. Just event after event after event, both good and bad.
What do you think is the biggest difference now then between those days? I think any of us with any sort of connection to the bike industry is aware of what the old launches or the reputations the old launches had compared with the modern ones.
Yeah. I mean, I think you had more time to get pissed, so you did.
It was like a rock star. I mean, that's the impression I get chatting with journalists like yourself. It's like it was almost like a rock star type of lifestyle for that launch, depending on what the launch was, obviously.
Okay, you need to put it in a bit of context, right? You're only going to hear the highlights.
Yes, true.
Listen, being a bike journal is a fucking brilliant thing to do. Right, and do you know what? It's one of the things I'm doing a bit of research, looking at some pictures for this, and I'm recording how long I've been a lucky bastard to be a journalist for. And there is no other way of putting it, particularly when, and we'll come to this, I'm sure, I got into this job by sheer chance and nothing else. But yeah, in terms of differences, right, there were more relaxed launches back then. Look, manufacturers don't mind you having a bit of fun, for fuck's sake. They're the ones who are saying, look, drink Mossy, you charge, anybody else who's there. Drink Fagan.
Fagan doesn't drink.
Must have missed that 5 minutes. There was more time. I mean, it's funny, right? Alistair came up with a good picture the other day that he put on his site. It was an empty restaurant, and only him and Lel Pavey were left having dinner, and it wasn't that late. And he said, "Is this what fucking journalism's come to?" Now, the fact is, most other people were upstairs fucking having to write and send shit because everybody wants it now, don't they?
Yeah, it's instantaneous, isn't it?
I'm amazed that people are not transmitting stuff live from a launch every time they stop. I'm really surprised. Now, I was on that launch, and the reason I wasn't at the gym table is because I was in hospital having been fucking broken foot and ankle looked at. So I had a decent excuse. But yes, that sums it up. There's no time. So I think, man, listen, there isn't enough money in the business anymore. I mean, it's not unusual for you to, in some cases, not all, thankfully, you can fly out to a launch, and if you're lucky, it's not too early in the morning, and day one could just be getting there on the rest, but day two can be riding the bike all day and then getting back on the plane to come home. I've had a few of them, and don't forget, it takes time to fucking get home once you've landed. Listen, I'm not saying it's a shit job. All I'm saying is there is a lot of time pressure these days.
Yeah.
And it just has people in head down keyboard mode much more than they used to be, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Picking up on something you said there about that there's not the money in the industry that there once was. Why is that? Because hang on. Let
me qualify that. There's not the money in the media.
Yeah, why is that then? Because in the old days, like PR companies would be spending thousands and thousands of pounds to run adverts and whatever in magazines. And they're not paying that anymore. They certainly don't. They don't pay the likes of me anything to review a bit of kit or review a bike. There's zero money. There's no money exchanged at all for that. So
look, I mean,
where's the money going?
Well, look, magazines are, they're dead, aren't they? They're not buried, but they're dead, and everybody's been invited to the fucking funeral.
Yeah.
We sample media in a different fashion. We've touched on it earlier, we're not bothered about 100-page magazines anymore, are we? If you've got a phone, listen, if you want to learn about the new R1300 GS, your phone will do for a lot of people. Don't forget, they're not the discerning consumers that they once were, they just want to hit, right, okay, oh, that's good, yeah, it's got that, yeah, bigger engine, bit more power, bit lighter, yeah, usual shape. It's been launched then, when's it, yeah, okay, if they're a potential buyer, they react to that. If they're just someone who's interested, they've got enough to be going on with. I think today's motorcyclist is very different. He's not the enthusiast that he used to be. He's not bothered about the cult of motorcycling that was very much underlined and illustrated by bike magazines. People don't need a Kev Smith or do these names mean anything? Kev Smith, Mark Forsyth.
Is Kev Smith the journalist that sadly he passed? Is that the one that passed away
Kev
a couple of years ago?
Kev Smith's still with us.
Who am I thinking of?
He was just an amazing rider who had everything sideways on the cover. Sean Emmett had everything at 12 o'clock on the cover of Fast Bikes. Mark Forsyth used to race and do really well, a proper character, brilliant writing. I don't think we're interested in that shit anymore, unfortunately. And what am I saying?
You can't get away with that anymore, though, can you?
No, society's become less laddish, though, hasn't it? Why doesn't... name the really successful lads magazine that used to sell fucking 100,000? Yeah.
FHM.
There's no market for it anymore, is there? Because we're all fucking... What's happened to us? What the fuck has happened to us, for Christ's sake?
Everyone's so easily offended on behalf of people they've never met and don't know. Yeah. They just get offended for no reason anymore. Anyway.
I mean, if you do wheelies in fucking bike, in fact, right, bike journalists are, bike publications, I beg your pardon, or anybody in bike media, in charge of bike media, does not like their lads doing wheelies any longer because it portrays the wrong image, Oh. We used to get, when you picked up a test bike from Honda, there used to be a little bit of small print, which basically said, I promise not to wheelie and generally misbehave, on this bike. Fuck off. It's a fucking Fireblade. What do you think I'm going to do? Just ride it at Tesco's? You know, at 30, do you know what? You've opened a large can of worms here. Motorcycling to me is not what it used to be. Fucking nobody fucking waves. You said earlier that if you stop, everybody, you know, if you break down, everybody stops. Fucking, I broke down in Devon once a few years back. It was New Year's Day? It was either New Year's Eve or day, right? It's this fucking shonker G450X off-road thing that I had. Anyway, it packs up for whatever reason. It wanted to fucking pack up that week. And I'm pushing it alongside this dual carriageway. And because of, I think it was New Year's Day, there was a biker's calf that was super popular, and they were putting on a bit of a New Year's Day spread. So lots and lots of guys were going there. They'd been attracted to this celebration. And they're all fucking just going past me. Nobody's stopping.
Really?
I was fucking utterly appalled at it. Long story short, I finally pushed it in. People watched me push up a long fucking gradient in the car park. Anyhow, I was fucking livid, and it really inspired me to sort of have a think about how things used to be. Fucking hell, you'd have a mob of people stopping for you, wouldn't you, back in the old days? Like you say, people used to wave. People used to, maintain their own bikes. People used to fucking ride in the rain. They'd ride in just generally poor weather. Look, I'm not passing judgment on so much. I'm always passing judgment. What am I saying? I'm a mouthy, northern, opinionated git. But on the issue of how bikes changed, it's changed. I'm just stating what I see as the facts. It's not the thing it used to be. People don't do any fucking miles. They're not proper bikers. It's a way of life, isn't it? It's a lifestyle. Dealers, fucking hell, the carpets are fucking deeper than fucking the lawn at bloody Wembley, aren't they? You know, the lawn, the pitch is what I should be saying. And everybody calls you sir and offers you a fucking cappuccino every time you move. And
what dealerships are you going to? Jesus,
come on,
it's not the ones I go to.
A lot of fancy BM dealerships are like that, aren't they? I might be laying it on a bit thick there, but they are not the spit and sawdust and oily floor.
Yeah, certainly BMW. No, yeah.
But do you know what? I've got a dealer near me, and can I give him a name check?
Of course.
Right, Dell's Motorcycles and Tyres. What a lovely arrangement exists there. The bloke himself, Dell, I can phone him up at any time, and he doesn't say, "Oh, I can't fit you in because my books are full for the next 3 months." He'll do as he does, not just for me, for everyone else. He'll try and fit you in where he possibly can. You can watch him fix your bike and talk to him while you do it. It's proper old school, friendly. It's just not corporate and not. You're not distant from the process of getting the bike sorted. You're very much involved with it. You're very much involved with anything that goes on there. And he's a lovely guy. He fitted me new Dunlop Rage yesterday, and I watch him do it, and he takes the piss, and I take the piss back. And I come away feeling as though something nice has been done to my bike by someone that I like. It's a meaningful experience. I don't drop it off at this fucking aforementioned dealer and get it back after.
Hang on, mate. My dog's going ballistic. 2 seconds.
No bother.
Oi, enough. Come here. Sorry, I think she's seen a dog outside, so she goes a bit ballistic. Apologies. Sorry, mate. Right, we're back in the room.
It's just a nice experience, and it's not remote as it is or can be in some other places. You know, you book your bike in, you hand it over. Okay, you get the courtesy bike, and you go off on that. It's all very nice, and more to the point, it suits today's motorcyclist. I'm not like that. I think I'm basically just an old twat who hankers for the old days to come back in many ways. But yeah, it's a different bunch of people riding bikes these days.
It's interesting to hear you saying that about like nobody stops or anything, because I think because I've had that experience of traveling where I relied on the help of strangers a lot of the time if I had an issue.
Where were they stopping, and where, which country, and when?
All over the world. You know, I went all over the world.
Listen, like, you go to France. Hang on. You go to Europe, everybody still does wave. Mm-hmm. Look, I'm not worldly enough, and not I'm not experienced and sort of knowledgeable enough of too much detail about how things are in the rest of Europe. But I certainly get the impression that, well, I can certainly make a judgment on what's happened in the UK. And listen, I stopped for a guy on the M25, and he had a guzzy. Fancy that breaking down, eh?
Who'd have thought?
Who'd have fucking thought? Anyway, I said, "You all right then?" And he was looking at me as though I was some sort of fucking pest. He said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I've fought the air." You know, and the small print of his conversation was, "What the fuck do you want?" You know,
leave me alone.
Yeah.
See, I make an effort to like, if I see a biker at the side of the road, I will slow down and sort of, you know, "Are you all right? Is everything okay?" Or I'll stop. Yeah. I will do that because people have done it for me.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. All I'm saying is I had a bad experience that day.
Right.
My test bikes rarely break down, you know, so I'm probably not qualified to make the judgment that I'm making now. But that day was a bad day. And I talked to Bertie. Do you know Bertie Simmons? Proper bloke. You've got to get him on.
Never met him, but yeah, I know the name, but I've never met him.
Great guy.
I'd love to.
No, man. I'll pester him on your...
Excellent, thank you.
He's a guy that's been at it for a while, and he used to be the sports reporter at MCN covering World Supers. Then he went to, where did he go? I think he went to Bike Magazine. I think he was a bit of an editor there. So he's ridden a lot of bikes, but he's met a lot of proper people. And he's an enthusiast, and he's a man doing it for the right reasons. Can I just give a big thumbs up to off-roaders at this point? They are proper people. When you go trail riding...
not like these GS wankers.
No, right. These guys have to be proper people, because let's face it, when you go off-road, you get fucking wet, you fall off a lot.
Stuff happens. You
get fucking old, and a lot of bad shit happens from time to time. You don't go to pose on an off-road bike because there's nobody to fucking show off to, for starters. You do it for the reward of riding, right? And if you get covered in shit, or you fall off a few times, you get soaked in wet, or your bike breaks down, you get a puncture, so be it. And do you know what? Do you know what a bike rally is? And I don't mean a competitive rally. Do you remember the RAC rally?
Again, never been to any, but I'm aware of them.
Basically, a rally is a competitive event, right? You get a 30-mile loop that's primarily off-road. Yep. Within that loop, you get special stages. So it is a race. It's very much a race, but there's a lot of... It's a bit like... It's like the Dakar, you know, there's liaison and then there's special time stage. A rally's not quite like the Dakar because nothing on earth is. But I broke down on one of these rallies and so many people stopped to try and help me. I had to effectively say, look, there's fucking Teddy is trying to help. Fuck off. No. I was a bit more polite than that, I hasten to add, but I was overwhelmed by kindness. And I think in recent years, people that I've competed with in bike rallies are my most favourite motorcyclists by a mile. Really good people. If you need your faith restored in the motorcycle fraternity and those who are involved with it, go to a bike rally. Just some of the finest people I've met. Just doing it, like, no egos, doing it for the right reason. I
think that's a benefit, I think, of what I have, because I'm surrounded by a really nice community that follow the channel, and I've got to know me and I've got to know them through meetups, and we're going through all my Patreon questions at the moment. I have a very healthy Patreon following. Basically, they pay my mortgage. They allow me to do this full time. But we have a lot of meetups, and we all met up at the ABR. So I'm sort of constantly surrounded by a really nice community of bikers who are off-roaders, who are road riders, who are all different types of bikers. So I think maybe I am tainted a little bit, but to me it just feels like.
Can I just stop you there? I mean, I'm giving the impression that I think all fucking today's motorcyclists are just a bunch of shits. That's not true. I'm just saying they're not quite like
it was
what they used to be, and they're certainly not like that in the quantity that they used to be. It's a different world.
I've heard that from lots of different people. Yeah. Lots of different people have said similar.
How long have I been riding? Did I say? I've been riding since. Yeah, I've been involved in motorcycling for 47 sodding years. There's bound to be a few differences, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
Listen, if I thought it was as shit as I might be suggesting it is, I wouldn't be riding.
No, I get you. I understand. Yeah, it's definitely changes. Yeah, right. Let's crack on. Try and work our way through some questions.
Before we crack on, can I have another comfort break, please?
Of course you can. No worries. Yeah, back in a minute, folks.
Can I just say I'm quite enjoying this? I thought it'd be fucking rubbish, but it's actually not bad.
Oh, no, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I think we're going to break records, on this one.
No, listen, I've got another fucking 5 hours in me. Do you know what? Right, here's something, right? I talked to a girl that I used to dispatch with, right? The lovely Tracy. I talked to her for 7... Hello, Tracy. I'm seeing Tracy soon, I hope. I talked to Tracy for 7 hours and 20 minutes.
I have absolutely no doubt you did.
I'm amazed that I did. That breaks all records. I don't think I talked about noshing myself off once either.
And with that, we'll be back in a minute, folks.
Thank you.
He says he's going to the toilet. Yeah.
We are back in the room. Ready, willing, and able. I'll tell you,
right. Go on.
Just let me just chuck this in. I'm riding that V-Strom today on these new tyres and doing my training bit, and I just went, fucking hell, how much do I love riding motorcycles? Every so often,
mega.
You just get that reminder, don't you? It's a lovely thing to take on board.
It's the best feeling ever, isn't it? It's the best feeling ever. When you get that, I call it the tickling the danglies sensation. When you get that feeling that you just said of, fuck me, I love this. I absolutely love this.
Tickling the danglies? Are you from Scotland?
I am, my man. Yes. We speak the Queen's English, Well, we
Can't say
did.
I've ever fucking noticed. Can't say I've ever noticed.
I'm not taking that from a fucking Geordie. Geordie wannabe.
Hang on. Sense of humour test fucking failed.
You bet. We're definitely going to need a bigger boat.
Right, go on. What else do you want to fucking talk about?
Next question. I think we're going to have to speed up the questions because we're at 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Well, listen.
3. We've done 3 questions in nearly 2 hours.
We can always do a part 2. We can always do a Mossy. We can do it. I mean, fuck me. I have not talked about anything I want to fucking talk about yet.
Right. Okay. Let's crack on with another couple and then we'll open the floor to you, Mossy. How about that?
Go on.
Right. Next one. Chris Murphy. Hi, both. You've got $7,000 and 4 weeks off work. What do you buy and where do you go?
Fucking great question. Again, Jesus Christ, that brilliant question. Do you know what? I would concentrate more on the doing rather than the fancy buying of flash bikes. $7,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Fuck. I'm just trying to. Right. I need to buy. Fucking hell. Can I have a bit more money, please? Right. I definitely need to go on a bit of an on and off road trip. Am I allowed to tell you what my best trip was?
Yeah, of course.
Right, okay. Best trip I've ever made was a mate. I've got a really good mate who lives in Manchester, Sean. Hello, Sean. ridden in Mongolia, ridden in the States, ridden fucking everywhere. He's the guy who pestered me to go off-roading, and he eventually had, like several others did, an influence on me doing that. But he kept inviting me on these trips, and he says, look, we're riding in the Italian Alps. Do you want to come down? Him and his gang were going to just put 4 bikes in a van it down there. And they were going to fly down and just ride from there. I decided I was going to ride a 690 KTM Enduro R. Fucking fabulous bike. I mean, it didn't break down.
Wow.
But I also took a V-Strom 650 as well. Anyway, put some proper tyres on, some Continental TKC 80s, and just had a whale of a time riding on and off-road. It was all new to me, just go trail riding in Italy, France and Italy, wild camping, fucking great crack with the other guys, just amazing scenery, all that, but much, much better than a normal road ride because it involved this as it was back then, quite a new experience in off-roading. Shitting myself half the time. And you know what? I said to Sean, I said, fuck me, that is definitely my best trip ever. And he says, hang on a minute, you go on all these fancy launches, how can this compare? He said, because I did it myself. I wasn't in a little bubble. I wasn't looked after all the time. I got much more reward from this because, I was much more involved with it. I did it myself, and the sense of achievement was bigger and better. And yeah, to this day. So I'd do something like that. I'd get a bike for about, ideally I'd get a bike for about $3,000, maybe 4, and spend the rest of it just to go to Morocco, where you're going. Okay, well, this is such a good idea. Somebody needs to give me $7,000 so I can answer this question properly. But more specific, I'd probably get an older KTM 690 then, or Husky 701 or something. Just something that's a bit more dual purpose, and ride down to Morocco and do some trails out there.
Nice.
But ask me again in 5 minutes, and I might have another answer. But no, that's my current love. A bit of travelling off road.
I get that. Yeah.
Further away, the better. Honestly, you haven't been? Have you been to Morocco before, Bruce?
Oh yeah, been loads. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. I mean, amazing.
Love it.
Yeah, it's the first on my list of places to go. It's the closest, very different place that there is, isn't it?
100%. That's exactly what I say all the time. It's your first sort of almost sanitized taste of what life is like outside of the Western world almost. And it's not to say Morocco's not developed. They've got cities, they've got, the chain type places over there as well. But it doesn't take very long for you to be out in the middle of nowhere where people stand in, they're wearing everything they own and they sleep in the gutter. They sleep at the side of the road. So you've got all of that. And it's just a beautiful place.
I've been 3 times, and every time I come back, I've been made to realise that I am a lucky, privileged, totally wealthy person with just a massive opportunity ahead of me.
Absolutely, totally agree. Yeah, I think. I'm looking forward to going back. I'm really looking forward to going back there. And again, it's the people. It's the people that make it. It's like people with absolutely nothing. They tend to be the most welcoming and warm and friendly.
I thought they'd resent us, because I've been 3 times and I've always been in a gang of people on fancy new motorbikes. Nobody goes dickhead as they do in the Western world, Well, they do to me anyway. They couldn't have been more friendly or hospitable.
Yeah.
I mean, it saddens me to think, actually. I mean, isn't it funny, travel? You might come away from the place, but the memory of it remains in your heart. And I saw a lot of deprivation. I don't know if that's... you can't use that word, actually. It's a relative term, isn't it? I think they're deprived. But they're not, because they're all happy, so they're not deprived. I'm probably fucking deprived. I mean, the Western world, we exist on materialistic things, don't we? And we think that wealth and material things give us rank. This is getting
our definitions of success are different, I think, to a lot of other people. A lot of other people's success is still being alive, still being able to put a roof over the head and food on the table of their family, and for their family to be healthy. That's success for a lot of people in the world. It's just making it through every day, isn't it?
I think an awful lot can be learned by going to a place that is, let's face it, it's just a couple of days, 2-3 days riding away, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, totally agree with you.
How long are you there for, Bruce?
Just over 10 days, I think we're there for.
Yeah. I would love to talk to you as soon as you get back.
Yeah, cool. No problem.
To me, I've never been anywhere. Well, I went to South Africa. There's some fucking proper poverty there. But Morocco moved me quite a bit on every single occasion I went, all 3 times.
On my world trip, my original plan was to sort of circumnavigate Africa. So I went into Morocco, went and did Western Sahara, then went down into Mauritania, and it all went a wee bit wrong in Mauritania. So
define that. Is that another statement?
I just got robbed all the time by the old bill, basically, and then I've chatted about it loads on this. I ended up getting taken by a gang at the Rosso border, between Mauritania and Senegal. So I got sort of taken by them for a bit. They were just trying to get money out of me.
Yeah. And then once hostage, basically.
I mean, I think that sounds very melodramatic now compared to what it was. Basically, they were working with the police, and they took me and this other chap, a South African guy who was riding back to Cape Town. They took us out of the border compound into the town in Rosso, and just kept us in like a concrete room, and they were trying to get us to pay
for how long?
I'm only talking hours. I think it was about 4 hours, maybe 5 hours.
4 hours in a freaking room with no idea of what your prospects were.
Yeah, they were just trying to get money. They were trying to get us to pay money for insurance, which I know didn't exist, and I know from research, most people would pay like $20. They were trying to get like $700 from us.
Sorry, No, I've missed the moment. It was a moment of humour, but it's past.
I'm intrigued now. Come on.
Well, I thought as a Scotsman they were probably demanding about fucking £3.50 from. That's the reason you got locked up.
I was like, you've never met a Scotsman. I ain't giving you diddly squat. Yeah. And I remember we got out of that and crossed over into Senegal, made our way to Dakar, because this guy Roger had to get some visas to get through some more countries. And I remember going through Dakar, and everyone we spoke to as we were working our way down West Africa was talking about Dakar, like locals. They were talking about Dakar as like this jewel in the Nile. We're like, oh, Dakar, such a beautiful place. So bear in mind what we'd just been through, and I'd nearly died a couple of times in the desert I was wearing leathers on the jigsaw and like nearly died of bloody heat stroke.
Did nobody tell you that? Did nobody tell you that it would get a bit warm?
Yeah, I was just being a twat, wasn't I? But so I was thinking, when we get to Dakar, it's going to be amazing. And I remember getting to Dakar, and there was literally people dead and dying, lying in the gutters, and people were just stepping over them, just getting on with life. And you're like, there's fucking folk dying here, but it was just normal, and it really had quite a profound effect on me, because I was like, this is normal life for these people. There's folk on the way to work, and to get to work, they're stepping over corpses, and there's people taking their last breath as they're being stepped over by people going to work, and that's normal everyday life. You're just like, fucking hell, this is a lot different to what I know.
Well, I mean, it
people have it tough.
It thrusts your own life into some sort of allows you to put it in some sort of perspective instantly, doesn't it?
Yeah, and
Like I
it
said,
made me massively appreciative for what we have here, and when I came back and heard all my mates moaning about life here, I almost wanted to shake them and grab them and, rub their faces in what you experience when you travel.
You know what I said earlier, every time I come back from Morocco, I realise just how privileged I am.
Yeah.
I had this sort of heightened sense of emotion on that subject when I was getting off the plane in, I think it was Gatwick. Just been to Morocco for 3 days, been really quite affected by what I'd seen. And I'm in the passport queue, and this bloke's fucking getting really quite irate about the fact that the queue's not going down. And I just turned to him and I just said, mate, you need to fucking shut up. And I'm not a nasty, violent fucker, but I really wanted to punch this fucker, because he was just... After what I'd seen over the last 3 days, I just thought his anger had no foundation. He was just being totally pathetic, Listen, I'm sure he'd had a bad day, and I'm sure he had sort of good reason to get upset. Because, look, I probably moaned this morning that I couldn't find my fucking bike keys. It was probably the end of the world.
Yeah,
we moan in context, don't we? And appropriately. And sort of proportionately
to what your norm is.
With it, exactly that, within our own sort of boundaries. But that's why, when I was saying earlier, I think travel is such an education, isn't it? It really just puts you in a much better position to view everything.
Yeah. There's that saying, isn't there? Travel broadens the mind. And it never really had a proper impact on me until I had travelled. And then you're like, you're fucking right. It absolutely 100% does. It does have a massive impact on you. Yeah.
If
totally.
if you want to learn something, fucking travel, because you'll learn the most pertinent things.
And I think on a bike as well, again, I've chatted ad nauseum about this on this podcast. I've had loads of world travellers on here and we've chatted about stuff. But travelling on a bike is so different to any other form of transport, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe something like a push bike would be kind of similar, but I don't think...
Can I just step in there and tell you a little story? Right, on a relevant birthday, I went to lunch with the girl whose mother's name I forgot, her again. And she says, don't eat too much, I've got a treat for you. Anyway, I didn't think of that at all. And anyway, she whisks me off to this local, it's actually called Cotswold Airport now, despite the fact there are no commercial flights. And the treat for my birthday was to go up in a bike ride. And as somebody who's not that keen on flying, I was surprised that, do you know what, it turned out to be the best thing imaginable. And just relating to what you just said about why motorcycling is so rewarding, I'm up in the sky there and I'm feeling the air and I'm listening to things, I'm smelling things, I'm getting all those senses satisfied that you do when you're on a bike. You are amongst it, aren't you, when you're on a bike? You're not
totally.
You're not isolated from all that.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'd recommend it. And strangely, I wasn't scared of being in that, despite the fact it's the chances of it sort of going wrong are probably 1 million times greater than they are a civil airliner. But, I'm with the pilot, I'm talking to him, I can sort of, I'm more involved, so I felt okay with it, But I'd recommend that. If you get a chance to go up in a bike ride, straight up there. It's like biking in the sky.
I would really like to do the old gliding.
Yeah,
that's what I would love to do.
Yeah.
So I'm just moving this light because I'm going orange for some reason. I would love to try like flying a glider. I've just seen one of my mates, Pete English, I've just seen he's posted up on his Instagram the other week there that he'd done it. I was like, oh, so jealous. I'd love to try something like that. Looks mint. Right, sorry, Chris, I don't think I answered that. $7,000, 4 weeks off. Where do you want to go? I think I would I really like little bikes, Mossy. I love little
Not much
125s.
to be said for them.
Yeah. I have great fun on the little 1-2. I'm 20 odd stone, 6'3", but I love little 125s.
I must admit, we've been on 125 launches actually, and I've been moved to say, don't buy an R1, buy 4 of these, give 3 to your mates, and just ride like utter twats.
Absolutely.
In the most competitive, rewarding, and hilarious fashion, because that's what we're in Barcelona on a couple of YAM 125s, R125 and MT 125, not that long ago, and that's exactly how we rode.
It's great fun, isn't it? Because you're just not going to get your chances of you getting done for speeding are pretty fucking remote, and you can just have a whale of a time. So that's what I would do. I would get myself a little 125.
It's easy to become a biking snob, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. You get wrapped up. You get wrapped up in figures, don't you?
Big style. Yeah, well put.
Yeah, I would just get a 125 and I would get a train ticket over with Eurotunnel into Cali and then just follow your nose. Just go on an adventure.
How far would you get on fucking $7,000 then? You'd probably get you'd get the bloody, I don't know, would you get
You'll
the
do Europe?
Yeah.
Well, do you know Nathan? Nathan Millward. He rode back.
Amazing story.
Yeah, he rode back from Australia on a postie bike, and I think he was about $9,000.
Yeah.
He was living on a McDonald's cheeseburger a day and living in a bush, but he did it on $9,000.
Can we say hello to Nathan? He is a lovely man.
Salt of the earth. Such a nice geezer.
Do you know what? There are certain people who I couldn't ever imagine disliking. Michael Palin is one of them.
Yeah.
Nathan Millward, definitely another. Now, one day I'll write all these down because they are rare beasts, aren't they? There are certain people I really don't think I could ever dislike for a second. But Nathan is up there.
Yeah, he's a top bloke. Really. Yeah. Have you done his? Have you been down to Dorothy's Speed Shop? His base down in Cornwall.
I was riding down there. I had a bike to eat in Lynmouth, and he came in with a gang of people that he was giving a bit of a guided tour to. But no, I've never been to the HQ as such.
I'm not sure if he's still doing it, but I did his postie bike sort of green laning type tour. It's a day where he just takes you around all the lanes and everything on the postie bikes. It was a fucking scream. I've got a couple of videos on it, and I am laughing like a schoolgirl the entire day. I had such a giggle. Loved it. I mean, thoroughly recommend it if you're still doing it.
That's another thing I'd like to come to, actually. One of the other great things about bike journalism is being introduced to bikes that you thought you would never, ever stand a chance of liking. I mean, when I started, if it didn't have a full fairing and a load of power and speed, it was shit. And then when I become a bike journal, you can't have that narrow point of view at all. You have to test things other than that. All this shit that I thought was just not worthy of any sort of praise and ever likely to appeal, suddenly felt actually quite good and enjoyable. You know, I jumped on an Africa Twin, you know, the original one, 60 horsepower, right? Big sit-on bed thing. And I'm going, you know, this is all right, this, isn't it? And then you get on things like, so it took a while, but in Goldwing, quite an experience, isn't it? A maxi scooter, a big trailie, you know, I think they call them adventure bikes now. All of that was, well, that's what the Africa Twin was, I suppose. All of that stuff that I thought, 125s, you know. I mean, Christ, I even rode a Indian Sport Chief Cruiser and had to admit that though it felt really quite weird and unlikely to, what's the expression? Tickle you what?
Tickle your danglies.
Yeah. I thought my danglies would remain untickled. I ended up liking it. It's all right. I mean,
you have permission to use that in print. There you go. You can use that.
I mean, 2-litre engine. It felt like a Scania every time you opened the throttle. That was all right. I think being a bike journal has allowed you to see why people buy what they do. You know, you try such a whole range of stuff, don't you? And you need to be open-minded to their sort of virtues that you realise, hang on a minute, there's more to life than just a sports bike, just a high-performance sports bike. Of course, I've gone the other way now. I'm less keen on riding high-performance sports bikes because they're just fucking nuts. They're amazing things, and they are well worth the praise that they get, but they are also fucking nuts. And you just look at the speedo and you're doing ton 60, aren't you, before you know it?
That's just what I've always said. You to get the same thrill and excitement that you get off of the likes of the modern adventure bikes, or just like a modern naked bike now, to get that same excitement and thrill that you get, because they've got much more low-end grunt, haven't they, within legalish road speeds. To get that out of a sports bike, you are doing triple digits before you know it, before that buzz kicks in.
The thrill is only at the top, isn't it?
Aye.
That's why I like off-roading. Do you know what? I've gone through sections off-roading where my speed has probably never exceeded fucking 10 or 15 miles an hour. But when I get to the end of it, I feel as good as I did whenever I won a race at Cadwell or fucking Donington, you know, because the challenge was still massive, even at such a slow speed.
Which is what I'm saying about 125s. You know, you get the sensation of speed because you're pinned pretty much the entire time. You're pinned, but you just you're going 40 mile an hour.
I tell you, there's loads to be learned from it as well. If you want to learn about how accurate riding, or the value of accurate riding, on a 125, the gear changes have got to be right. The lines have got to be right. The getting on the gas has got to be right. The braking points, everything needs to be so exact. I mean, do you watch Motor 3 racing? It's fucking nuts. You need drugs to watch it. You probably need drugs to fucking ride in it as well. It's just nuts. But those guys cannot afford to make a single error. They are maximum from lights to flag, aren't they?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think MotoGP, particularly this year, I kind of stopped watching it the last few seasons, but this year I find it really quite engaging, isn't it? Really, and with the sprint, I like the sprint races as well. It's just added a new dimension for me. And I think because now Marquez is he's gone, isn't he? And is this the whole new breed that are in? You're just like, oh my God, they've raised the bar from Marquez, because he used to be the alien, wasn't he?
Do you know what? I'm really sympathetic, mind you, because that guy is going through a very, very tough period, isn't he? I mean, his future's uncertain. Do you know what? The fairy tale would be for him to come back on whatever, and for things to fall into place and win another world championship, or at least some races. But can you imagine being that good and prevented showing even a fraction of how good you are because of bad luck, a poor motorbike? I mean, do you know what? Honda, let's see. I think they build very good, if not boring, motorbikes, Fireblade accepted. But I think they should be embarrassed by how poorly they're performing at world level. You know, in MotoGP, this is the biggest bike firm in the world with the biggest resources imaginable, and they can't. I mean, how long was it last year? The year before, they didn't even get on the rostrum.
Why is that, do you think? What's going on that's led to this?
Right, I'm going to say something that I always like to say about racing. I think unless you're there, and unless you're talking to as many people as possible, riders, engineers, team chiefs, and they're all being honest with you, you probably are better off keeping your opinions to yourself. I don't know if it's just the Japanese culture that's getting in the way. Let me say one thing. I did an interview with Loris Capirossi once after he'd gone back to Ducati after riding for Honda. I don't know if he'd gone to Ducati. I don't think he'd ridden with them before. And I said, what's it like? He said, mate. He probably didn't say mate, actually, because he's Italian and they don't tend to do that. But he just said, look, if I wanted a change made to the Honda, there was all sorts of meetings and toing and froing and communications. He said, if I want something done to my Ducati, I phone the boys in the workshop, and the very next time I ride it, it's there. It's done. Sometimes it's not for the better, so we take it off. But at least there is an instant, there's an instant chance of improvement.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not behind the scenes enough to answer that question with any credibility, but Nevesy came out with a good one recently. He says, do you know what? Not that long ago, the Japanese were only competing against themselves, but now they're competing against the Europeans. And the Europeans, courtesy of Ducati, but Ducati are fucking running away with it.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? What a turn of events there. What a turnaround.
In fairness, once upon a time, a Ducati was a career killer. It's all right, Casey Stoner having won a championship on it, but look, Melandri got on it.
Rossi couldn't ride it.
Yeah, Rossi is the very best example of that. Hayden, nobody got a result. And strangely, do you remember when the RCV first came out, the V5? This is when Rossi, Japanese teammate, rode them in the Repsol colours, and Rossi won his first world championship.
Yeah,
every single person who got on that bike did well. Camarossi and Barros got a go on it towards the end of the season when they swapped their 500s for it, did well. Edwards did well on it. Melandri did well on it. Gibernau did well on it. Everybody who got on it, because that was a Honda. I mean, to me, Honda just made... And a man, Dave Hancock, he once said, you know what, we make bikes for everyone to ride as easily as possible. And I think that's what they did with that RCV. I rode Rossi's bike and Catalunya, and the biggest takeaway wasn't the fact that it was amazingly fast and did everything so brilliantly. It was the fact that it felt so rideable. Right, I'm riding it only within a fraction of its full capability, but it felt like a big powerful VFR 750 style bike to me. Just all the Honda hallmarks, To just put that in better context, I rode Chianari's Fireblade, BSB Fireblade at Cadwell. I know it's a very different track, it's a much more demanding track, but I rode that not that long later. That was more difficult to ride. That had a rush of its power that made it wheelie. Yeah, because look, one bike, i.e. the RCV, is a prototype. It's built from the ground up with less restriction in terms of rules. The other one is a modified production bike that's originally been made for people to ride on the road. For Christ's sake, it's bound to have some limitations when you try and make it go a lot faster. That V5, I could have dispatch ridden on that bike.
Really?
It probably would have got pinched, wouldn't it? But it just felt that well mannered.
Are there? I mean, it doesn't sound like there are, but you hear of like car journalists. Let's get the Top Gear guys, for example. They get the option to drive a Formula One car, and like the overwhelming report you get is you can't even get the thing off the start line. Obviously, it's not the same with a MotoGP bike, but
not that MotoGP bike. Right, you've mentioned something pertinent there. I mean, I went to slip the clutch to get it to go out the pit lane. No need for that. Just straight off the bottom, just talk and drive. And, so, at no point, look, it went very, very fast. But at no point did it go, wee, it wasn't like some...
It wasn't like a bucking Bronco.
Yeah, it wasn't like a 70s two-stroke that when it got into its power, it went mental. Do I need to turn the light on here?
It is getting dark, yeah. It is getting quite dark.
Some say I look a lot more attractive.
I'll tell you what, you've got paler.
Then the worst light.
There we are.
I tell you though, it went dark in the last fucking 5 minutes, didn't it?
It seemed to get dark really quick, didn't it? All of a sudden I went orange and I was like, what's going on? It's because it's got dark outside and these lights have changed the white bar. Anyway, never mind. Right, well, we better crack on
Okay,
with some questions.
that was an interesting fucking 10 seconds.
Yeah, right, cheers for that one, Chris. Next one, Patrick Collum. Evening to you both. My question...
Hang on, whoa. Let's be kind to the man by at least understanding his name.
Patrick Collum.
Patrick Collum, good evening to you, sir.
Evening to you both. My question, or maybe you could say just something to discuss. Motorcycle launches seem to follow a pattern. I understand in winter riding in the UK would be an issue, but whilst it's great to go to Spain, Portugal, Italy, etc., often I tend to ignore the initial review and wait for a group test, or better still, a long-term review. Where it's been lived with for several months. If you could change launches or the way the bike industry interacts with a plethora of modern media, what would you do? Or if you worked for a manufacturer, what kind of bike do you think is genuinely missing from the market today that would sell well? Right, so two parts. Changing modern launches.
You've got some good viewers, haven't you? Great question.
They're brilliant.
Great question. It's not just you making them up, is it?
Absolutely not. I almost rely on the clan. Well, it's not just clan. There's Instagram and Facebook to come yet, but people's questions are great. Just take you down so many different avenues.
Let me say this, and we talked about this earlier. Launches ought to be seen as just a bit of a taste. Mm-hmm. Now, let's give a bit of credit to some journalists, at least. If you've ridden a million bikes before, you'll be amazed at how quickly you can make a quick assessment of a bike. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to sort of qualify that a bit. You've got the context, you've got the experience to sort of put whatever you're riding on a launch into some sort of context. But yes, you're quite right to ignore them, I think, in many ways. I think as long as you view it as the journalist giving you a basic idea of what the thing's like, i.e. it's very nice, it's not nasty, or it has a particular quirk, or it has a particular feature that might appeal to someone. Is it rideable? Is it nice? Is it comfy? We can't really say that because we don't ride them enough. Do you know what? Some of the best launches I've been on are where you either ride the bike out to the launch from the UK, or more often was the case, you'd fly out to a destination and you'd ride them home. Ooh. We went to the Honda Hornet launch. It was the Hornet and the Deauville. You couldn't think of two more contrasting bikes in a hurry, can you? And we rode them at somewhere like Cartagena or something. Rode the Hornet round the track, I think, and then rode it home. And that was quite telling because it did about 80 miles to the tank. It was just rubbish, whereas the Deauville, that was a great test for it. I felt as though I knew that bike quite a bit by the time I got back to Honda's HQ in London. But yes, you're not giving enough time. It's all orchestrated too much. Nevesy again came up with a good one the other day. He rode the latest Honda Hornet at its launch. And it was they're obviously very well, what's the word, sort of, they're sort of contained via a certain route at a certain speed by outriders. Mm-hmm. You chaperoned a great deal. You can't explore the full potential of the bike so much. And he came away feeling a bit nonplussed with the bike. And then he rode it from MCN's offices in Peterborough down some of his favourite roads, out of a few roundabouts, and just went, fucking hell, this is actually quite an exciting thing, because he was let off the lead. Mm-hmm. So that's another restriction with launches. In fact, Chris Northover, he's a man I've got a lot of time for, the bike world man. He asked what turned out to be a more pertinent question than I perhaps realised at the time. Maybe I'd had a few sherbets, I don't know. But he just said, how valuable do you think launches are now, Mossy? And I don't... great question. And I think the answer is far, far less than they once were. We've all got a bit sort of wiser and more aware of things, aren't we? And yeah, I never, or very, when I think never is probably the best word. I never come away from a launch thinking I know everything I need to know about this launch, this bike, I beg your pardon. Yet this V-Strom 800, right? That's a good example actually. I ride the V-Strom 800. I know within a very short space of time this is a good bike that will suit me.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot of features that will help it suit a lot of other people other than me. But I'm able to suss that out because I've got enough experience. But the fact, and I knew straight away that I wanted a Badger Suzuki to get one of these as a long-termer.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of my year's ownership, I'll be in a much better position to comment on it. But only then, I think. You need to live with the motorbike, don't you, to be a credible judge on it. There are going to be some things about this V-Strom, perhaps, that really irk me, that never would on a launch. Can I tell you a couple of bikes that should never be launched to the press at a typical launch? Yamaha Nikon is one.
Yeah.
And Honda NC750X is another one.
Why is that then?
If you need to ride both of those bikes a hell of a long way under a very different set of circumstances to realise that they have some things that no other bikes offer. Now, it's funny. I had both of them as long-termers. So that's how I think I know. Right, the Nikon, quite obviously, that's got a front grip advantage that takes you a hell of a lot of time to appreciate. Because you're just too scared to push it any further for quite some time. You know, it's so capable, you simply cannot believe what it can do. But that's not an overnight discovery. You know, you need to ride it mile after mile and push it harder and harder and harder, and realise that when the tyres are freezing colder, it's wet. It doesn't matter. The NC750X, I rode that bike. I was due to ride it out to Wales to do a photo shoot with Low PV. First time I'd ever ridden one. I got to Gloucester, which is 15 miles away from my house. I wanted to set fire to it. It was so dull. And it had DCT, which I hated because I just thought, what the hell do I want a computer changing gear for me for? I can do this, you know. Leave it to me, for Christ's sake. I'm a grown-up, you know. Fuck me, I'm a grown-up. There's a claim. In the end, I asked for it as a long-termer because I remembered my dispatch days and how important it was to have just a comfortable, practical, easy to ride, tick a load of boxes type bike. And incredible motorbike for very, very different reasons. When people used to ask me what sort of bike I had during the ownership of that NC750, I'd just say, Honda 750, and move on and talk about the weather or something. Because trying to justify why, on the face of it, a 53 horsepower motorbike floated my boat in anywhere, I thought would damage my reputation. So I never admitted to it. Oh man, who's going to get it? Look, the guy who it was being paid to ride it after 15 miles wanted to set fire to it or take a plug out or make it break down. Even he hated it. And he's a man who maybe should know better and should have known that I should have given it a bit of time. That's all it takes. It needs to suit a certain sort of person. But as a man who relies on a motorcycle as a mode of transport, it did. I'd have one tomorrow again. Honestly, just an amazing motorbike for very, very different reasons that the majority of motorcyclists will never understand.
No, I get that. Yeah,
I don't know if that makes me sound plain weird. All I'll say to justify that is I did a talk to some TRF guys the other day, and one of them came up to me and he said, "Mate, I love that video you did about the NC750X because I've got one and you justified every reason to own one." And he too faced a wrath of just piss takers, basically. I mean, the Nikon, I'm glad I gave that back when I did, because I think I would have got into a fight eventually. Because everyone used to take the piss out of me for riding that, let alone liking it.
I've never ridden one. I'm dying to. I really want to try one.
Here's the deal, though. And I don't want to sound conceited in any way here. Let me know when you do, because I would like to give you a few shortcuts and just bits of advice on how you can appreciate that more fully and sooner.
Right, mate, you're on. If I ever get my hands on one, you're on.
You must ride it. Amazing thing. There are some drawbacks.
What happened to your Nikon experience eventually?
I don't. What do you mean? Right, it's something I talked about the other night. Actually, it's something that I'm glad that happened in a funny sort of way, because I was a big fan of the Nikon and kept raving about it. Jeff Turner at Yamaha said, "Look, we've got a dealers outing at Silverstone over a couple of days when the Nikon Roadshow was visiting said circuit as well, coincidentally, and they had 30 of them in the back of this Arctic. It's going to be a big bloody trailer, hasn't it, to cram 30 Nikons into it? But anyway, this was a chance for dealers to ride the bike that they were trying to sell. And let's face it, selling a Nikon isn't easy, is it? Because the bike market's too conservative and narrow-minded with its view. And he said, Mossy, will you come along and be an ambassador? I said, gladly. I was such a fan of this bike. It gave me great pleasure to extol its virtues and pass those on to people. Anyway, I didn't know the circuit that well, so I asked a chap. He's a chap called Ian Cobby. He's a former BSB guy. He knows how to ride a bike. I said, show me the way around. Then he waved me through, and he followed me, and he said, Jesus, man, you're making that thing do amazing things. I said, Ian, it's not me, it's the bike. You can brake late in the corners. You can take the piss with the front end. It just sticks. Anyway, then I did a video, and I described it as an uncrashable motorbike because the front grips so well. And
how many years had you been in the industry when you said this?
100. Anyway, in my defence, it rained, and I went up to Cobby, and I said, what's the grip like here in the wet? I just wanted to know, because on the road, the wet grip of that Nikon is just amazing. But I didn't know what Silverstone would be like, and I knew I was going to go a lot faster, so I needed to check. He said, fine, it's good grip, but it's not really raining. It's just sort of spitting a bit. I wouldn't worry about it. Give it beans, you know. Anyway, I came into a corner called Abbey Curve, and it's quite a fast ride. But I came in at dry pace, and it had actually been chucking it down there. The thing about Silverstone is it rains on some corners and not others.
Yeah.
And I steamed it, and I just lost the front immediately. And it was good that I did that, because I was getting to the stage where, particularly on the road, where I thought I can do anything with this
invincible.
Bike. Yeah. And I would have had a Silverstone-style crash on the road, and I wouldn't have just walked up and got away like I did. You walked away like I did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it proved, look, Verstappen's F1 car has a limit, doesn't it? That car probably grips better than any other wheeled vehicle on Earth, doesn't it? But you can still crash it.
Yeah.
The Nikon might offer amazing front end grip, but it's still crashable. I had to try hard to crash it, but I did it. But yeah, lesson learned. So
it's one of those bikes that when I saw it, I was just like, I want to ride that. I want to try that. And like everyone else I spoke to was just like, oh, it's almost a joke. Is this April Fool's? What is it? That's rubbish. But I was like, I want to ride that. I want to see what that's like.
You must. I will say this, though. I did a test with, Michael, do you know MCN do the 250, MCN 250 test?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It comes quite close to my house. And I knew he was doing a Nikon. I said, can I come with you? And I went and met him on my Nikon. And you know what? I'm following him and I'm looking at this bike and I'm just going, fuck, do I look like that? It looks like it should have a blue badge on the screen.
Yeah.
It looks like a special needs bike. It is the most unsexy wheeled motorcycle that there is. But again, I had a great time on it. It opened my mind to a different concept. Cobby said, can you imagine that with like proper wheels, brakes, tyres and everything, a load of weight chucked off it? It'd be amazing.
I think there's nothing more impressive than seeing one of them being wheelied. Yeah. You see a Niken getting wheelied, you're just like, that is the bollocks.
I was on the latest version of it about 2 months ago, and Chad was doing a big, proper, high things. Yeah.
I wish I could wheelie properly. I'm shite at them.
You just have to take some lessons. You're shite at them at the moment. You're not.
I have had lessons.
Hang on. Oh, you have.
I'm still shit.
Okay, well, not everybody can do stuff a load better than they think they can do with decent guidance, can't they?
It's funny because I pretty much film everything I do on a bike now. That I can, when I was editing the vid, I did this wheelie school. And when I was editing the video for it, you can hear the revs in the engine, but you can also look and see what your hands are doing, and what I noticed was that every time the front came up, I was rolling off the throttle or I'd grab the clutch again and then both down it would come. But at the time, none of that was registering. I was like, well, I'm keeping a constant throttle, but you're not. And it's just that instinct, that natural instinct to shut off.
Yeah, but again, you're learning what's restricting you from further progress, and there's quite possibly something you can do about it. On the subject of wheelies, I used to hate doing them. When I was racing, I'd go over Candle Mountain. If the front came up, I'd shut off straight away. Just didn't like the idea.
Yeah,
I used to win races on the LC. I wasn't rubbish, but I just didn't like this wheelie business. And then, can you remember what a GTR 1000 was? It's like a pan-European equivalent from Kawasaki.
Yeah,
I had one of those. And I made a balls up of coming away from the traffic lights once, and it came up, but it didn't feel too scary. So then I did another one. And this bike, despite its weight and all the other things that you would think would count against it, was actually not a bad wheelie bike. And that's what I learned to wheelie on. But more to the point, that's what got me through my psychological barrier of that not being a nice thing to do.
A GTR.
Honestly, if you Google it, you look at it, it just looks like a proper plastic monstrosity. It doesn't look wheelieable. But that's the bike that got me through that psychological barrier, And then once you do that, which is in the stage you're at now, clearly, you'll be fine. You'll be able to. I went on to be able to wheelie lots of things. I mean, I don't do it anymore, so I'm massively out of practice. But yeah, I'm sure I could get back into it. But people like Chad, fucking every time I see a bush.
There's nothing more impressive than seeing a controlled wheelie. Someone that has total control over a bike and they can wheelie it and both. I've told this story again a couple of times on this podcast. I remember being in the Old Bill. I used to be in the Riot Old Bill for a while. So obviously there's not riots going on in London all the time. So when you're not doing riots and drugs raids, you're patrolling. You're going around in the riot vans and you're just patrolling around looking for gangs and stuff. And we were up in central London one time coming up Charing Cross Road, and there was a guy in front on a KTM 690, and he was just sat at some lights, and he was a typical sort of like London, like a distinguished gentleman's ride type rider, guy in his 30s, 40s. He had like a tweed cap on, the dodgy tash, the old satchel bag, the tight jeans with the roll-ups. It's just that. It should be in a coffee shop.
A dude.
Yeah, and like a bike shed customer, the original sort of bike shed type customer. Yeah. And the lights went to green, and he popped it up on the back wheel, and he just trundled up the road, sat on the back wheel, like at 20 miles an hour. And I'm driving the van. literally behind him, or a couple of cars behind him. And everyone on my bus was like, that's fucking out of order. Have him.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wanted to give the bloke a round of applause. I was like, do you know how hard that is? What control he's got? That's phenomenal. So we had to tug him. So I said to the skipper and the boys in the bus, I'll deal with this one. And I got off, and I literally did the old walk up to him, and I said, look, I've got to give you into trouble here, so please look like I'm giving you a ticking off. But I think that's fucking amazing what you've just done. How'd you do it? I would love to be able to do that. So just sort of stood there for like 5 minutes and pretended to lecture him, and was just like, that's amazing. I wish I could bow down in front of you.
I bet he is telling that story to that.
Yeah.
That is great policing.
Well, do you know my story in the police?
Go on.
It was funnily enough, it was social media that resulted in me coming out of the old bill. This was 2019. I took out the latest S1000RR and did a review vid on it.
Yep.
And I had some fun on the bike.
You are a policeman at the time, yeah?
Yeah. I'm serving copper at the time. Everyone knew that I was a copper. I never hid the fact that I was a copper.
So you took the double R out for what reason? Just to give it a go? It wasn't for journalistic purposes?
Well, yeah, it was to do a review vid for my channel, for my for my YouTube channel. Okay. Oh, yeah, I started this way back in 2011, 2012.
What, called TeapotOne back then?
Yeah. The round the world trip was called TeapotOne, and then
sorry, what's your name again?
And
I'm just taking the piss because I don't know this and I feel a bit bad.
Oh, okay. So no, don't worry about it. No worries.
To lighten my load.
Gotcha.
Sorry, back to you, Bruce.
So I took this S1000RR out. I did the vid on it, whacked it up there, and another copper, who I don't know to this day, I don't know who it was, but a copper saw the video. And we have a confidential hotline in the old bill in the Met called Right Line, and it was traditionally for, like, if you saw something out of order going on, like a copper stealing money, copper dealing drugs, a copper properly abusing their position, like there's all sorts of stuff going on, from murder through to prostitution, through to just extortion, everything's going on. That's what it was originally meant for, but you can use it for anything now. And this copper right-lined me and called up our professional standards and said, this bloke is a serving copper, he's got a YouTube channel, and he's speeding in this video, and he's riding dangerously, blah, 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 blah. So
was it because you were doing 90 on the motorway?
I pretty much always blur my speedo once I go over like national speed. So if it's a single carriageway 60, dual carriageway 70. So even if I'm doing 75, a lot of the time back in those days I would blur it out, just because I was aware of the fact I'm a serving copper, and you're just giving people ammo, aren't you? So anyway, I think
the word you're looking for is illegal.
Yes, yeah, totally. And I put my hands up. It was, and fine.
I'm
totally get it. But you know what I mean? It's like, but everyone does. Anyone that says they don't speed, you're bullshit. But anyway,
magistrates nicking people for speeding that morning go out and speed that afternoon, don't they?
I know. I just think it's really hypocritical thing to do that. But anyway, so this eventually gets picked up for. I was in the diplomatic side of things, and we had our own professional standards. The governor that was in charge, the inspector that was in charge of that, I'd never ever met her before in my life, but she decided she really wanted to get the bit between her teeth with this. And she basically said to me, we can take 2 years to investigate this, and I'm going to make sure we take 2 years. The absolute maximum they could ever do is just give me a letter on my official record to say, you've been a naughty boy, don't do it again. That's it. That's all that could ever happen. But what she could do is she could stop me from having any social media presence at all. They could require that I stopped everything. And I just thought to myself, I spent 10 years building up what I had by that point, the whole community that I had around it. And, I was just like, I get more from that than I do from the old bill. So I had a chat with my wife about it, and Well, actually, I threw my warrant card at this inspector and told her to stuff her job. But obviously, she said...
Now, I mean, ultimately, are you to thank this?
Yes, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. You know, they've had one of the biggest impacts on my life, and in a good way, because I'm now doing a job I love. And yeah. So, yeah, Mega, thank you very much if you're watching.
Great story. I mean, happy ending after what would appear to be a seemingly very tricky time, though, I would imagine. I mean,
but it's difficult moving to being self-employed when you've been employed by the government. That's been the hardest thing for me.
I know. Listen, I went from MCN, guaranteed wage every week, a month, whatever it was. And a certain level of certainty to, oh my God, is the phone going to ring? And whenever it didn't, I quietly shit myself.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, I don't know. Listen, uncertainty is always a scary prospect, isn't it?
But you have this realization, don't you, that it's going to be all right. You'll figure it out. Like for me, I just thought to myself, well, do you know what? If I can't pay the mortgage, or I can't put food on the table, obviously that's not a struggle, but then you just get a job, don't you? Like there's plenty of places where you can go and get a job. Just go and get a job.
It's sort of almost easy to be terrified, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, confidence in the future is not always easy to sort of attain or retain or maintain. Life's a fascinating business, isn't it? Full stop.
My sort of mantra behind the whole channel, behind the whole TeapotOne brand, is something my mum said to me before she died. It's live your life, and those words had the biggest impact on me. And I remember somebody saying to me, they were like, they were a good mate, but they turned around to me and they said, you maybe need to live by your own words here. He said, live your life, get out there and just enjoy it. You've got the opportunity now that a lot of people would give their right arm for, or regret not doing themselves after spending 40 years in a job that they hated. They're like, just go for it. If it doesn't work out, fine.
Did you dislike the Met for quite a long time in the end?
Yeah. I'd got to a stage where it was just a job. Like, I turned up, I did the job, and I went home. And it was a paycheck. That was it.
Life needs to be more than that, doesn't it?
100%. Because I left it 18 years, just over 18 years in. So even to do 30, I had 12 years left, but I would have had to do 35 to get my big pension because it all changed. So, effectively I had almost another 20 years left in that job. And you're just like, I remember thinking to myself, do I want to feel like this and do this for another 20 years?
For another quarter of a century.
Fuck. Yeah, or fuck it, let's just go for it for a year or two and see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's kind of still what I'm doing now.
Turned out well in the end.
It's doing all right at the moment. Yeah, things are going okay now, especially with the tours. Now COVID's fucked off, I can do my tours and stuff. It's going all right.
I don't know if this is the right place to talk to you, but I want to talk to you about that thing you're doing off-road on an adventure bike. What is it? Mm-hmm. I've got a different notebook. What is it? The set or something?
Oh, the ACT.
ATC, is it? Or ACT?
I think it's ACT, Adventure Country Tracks, ACT. Yeah, that's what it is.
I need to learn more about that from you, by the way.
Right.
I was thinking of. Go on.
There's another YouTuber, a chap called Mark Kent. He's got a channel called Epic Motorcycle Adventures, and he is
what's his name?
It's called Epic Motorcycle Adventures.
Yeah,
and he's just If you just search on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'll send you the link. Epic Motorcycle Adventures.
Do that, please, yeah.
He's just finished doing the whole ACT. Well, I don't think he did the Isle in the UK. Yeah, he didn't do the Isle of Man section, but he did Wales and Northern England.
What's the total mileage? Is it 1,000?
I think it's about 800 or 900 miles, and that includes the Isle of Man bit, I think. So it's a mixture of road and off-road, but it's predominantly...
What did he do it on?
A GS.
Is he a bit handy?
He's better than I am off-road, but he's taught himself to get there. He's gone from being a complete novice a year or two ago in terms of off-road, but he entered the GS trophy. And I think that, you know, he didn't win it, obviously, but he entered that, and I think that lit a fire where he was like, I quite like this.
Have you had him on your show?
I've not yet, no, but he will be coming on. I'm going to, Mark, if you're listening, he does listen. I'd like to get him on for a chat. Because I've been chatting to him about...
Whatever you're doing next week, Mark, cancel it because you're on here. Have you got that?
But yeah, he's going to be doing a series of vids on the ACT. So I'm going to be watching them because I want to see what it's like. Because I'm going to be doing it with the TAM podcast lads, Trail and Adventure. The TAM podcast. It's Trail and Adventure Motorbike podcast, I think is what they are. Yeah.
Trail and Adventure Bike podcast, right?
Trail and Adventure Motorbike podcast. TAM podcast.
Okay, that's catchy, word. Isn't it? That's catchy.
Yeah, no. Clive and Noel, they're good boys.
Can you imagine trying to pass that on to a mate after about 6 pints? Trail and Adventure Bike podcast.
Trail and Adventure Motorbike podcast. Yeah. TAM podcast, all one word. They're going to be loving this. They're going to be loving this.
It's a good plug.
It's a good podcast, actually. They get some really good guests on there. Yeah.
I'd like to know more about this, actually, because I've got a very specific view, as I sort of hinted about earlier, about this adventure bike riding. I talked about some of the drawbacks of riding off-road on adventure bikes, and I'd like to balance that up a bit. It's if you are sent down the right sort of route with the right sort of guidance and experience, it can be wonderful. I've had a nice time this afternoon or this morning when I was on my V-Strom. But I think there's too many people seeing too many adverts and brochures and thinking, oh, I'll buy one of them and do that. Just like that, thinking I'll just hand over the money, get the bike and go do. I reckon there's a few people who found themselves in a few ditches with a few broken bits, including bones over the years, because they've been sold this. It's not a lie. I just think at the bottom of the pictures and the brochure adverts, it should sort of say, in due course. You can enjoy this massively in due course. For God's sake, don't think that it's an instant thing. It's
not out the box, yeah.
It's a bit like motorcycling, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people get the idea that they're going to love motorcycles, and it's just a question of getting on them and riding them. Yeah. I mean, how long does it take to ride a motorbike properly? I mean, don't ask me because I'm still bloody learning.
I was just going to say, I'm still learning now. And
it's a forever process, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
It's a big deal, which is exactly why it's so good, because it's not easy. Easy things are shit. That's why I like off-roading. And that's why some of the tougher days off-roading are some of the best. I mean, who wants to hear a story of, I got on my bike and went off-roading and nothing went wrong when I came home? You know, you want to hear it. I mean, let me tell you a story about Pavey. I interviewed him after a particular Dakar. I could talk for hours about this, but I'll keep this shorter. Basically, he chucks a conrod in the middle of a desert, right? That to me is Dakar over, not to Pavey. Pavey goes, he comes out with this classic phrase, right, I need a plan. That's what he does. He doesn't go, oh my God, it's all over. He just goes, right, this plan's not working, I need another one. Luckily for him, in the distance of this desert, coming down a dune, he sees this pickup coming his way. And it just so happens when it arrives, he knows the passenger. And the passenger goes, bloody hell. He spent a bit of time with this passenger. And the passenger naturally goes, oh, Simon, how are you doing, bit of hugging and stuff. How are you doing? He said, well, as you can see, not so clever, you know. Fucking Conrod through the case, oil everywhere. Anyway, he's decided not to change his engine the day before, which works out to be fortuitous because right now he needs that engine. Long story short, he gets in touch with Patsy Quick. Do you know her?
No.
You need to get her on this show. Incredible
Patsy
woman.
Quick.
Patsy Quick. I'll say more about her later.
Okay.
Anyway, he gets in touch with Patsy Quick, who's in the bivouac, the paddock, this mobile paddock. And he says, can you sneak my spare engine out of there? Now, strictly speaking, you're not supposed to do that. But as Purvey says, in the spirit of Dakar rules, if you're not a factory rider, not one of the really important people, they'll be aware of it, but they'll let it go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what's agreed is the guy in the pickup goes back to the bivouac to get this spare engine and bring it back to Pavey. But it also should be noted that the passenger that he knows says, right, I've talked to the driver about this and he's willing to do this, but he's here to watch the Dakar, not spend fucking hours and hours and hours aiding one of the competitors.
Yeah.
So he's told me that he'll get the engine, he'll bring it back, and he'll give you 1 hour to change it. And whatever is occurring after 60 minutes, he's off to watch the Dakar. Anyway, so in the middle of the desert in 40-degree heat, using his jacket as the bench effectively, Pavey gets the old engine out and he's ready for the new one, or his spare one, to be put in. He gets halfway through that, the hour passes, the bloke goes, and he is there in the middle of the desert. And there comes a time when everything's in place and he's going to press the button, and the reaction to that button pressing will dictate whether his Dakar continues or not. So he fucking fired up instantly. So he's going again. Changed an engine in the middle of the desert in 40-degree heat. What a guy. The next day, he's bouncing along at a fair old rate on just a fire road, nothing too difficult. But the bouncing gets a bit out of hand and it comes round and digs in and high sides him. Oh. Now, Simon Pavey is a tough cookie, but he said it took him 45 minutes to get to his feet because he was in that much pain.
Jesus.
He gets to his feet. In fact, no, while he was on the ground, I beg your pardon, Mr. Key Bittinger, this is in South America when they've moved it there because of troubles in Africa. And despite the fact he was in the middle of nowhere, he says, as is the case, that there was always a spectator or two. One of these spectators came up. Pavey's still on the floor in a bit of pain. He says, oh, you okay? You okay? What can I do? And Pavey is moved to just say, oh, fuck off. He's in so much. He just doesn't want to talk to anyone. But anyway, eventually this guy helps him to his feet and he needs help. He helps him get on the bike. It turns out he's got quite a sore wrist is a bit of an understatement. His wrist is so painful and so inactive, he can't pull the clutch lever in. He has to claw it in in order to make any progress. Anyway, he gets going, and I think within just a few miles, he comes to the first right-hander that he's come across. I think it was just a couple of miles, actually, max, maybe less. He can't steer it. He goes down. It turns out to be the most fortuitous crash that he's had, because when another guy from the middle of nowhere comes to help him, they notice the bike's covered in oil. What he's failed to see after picking the bike up after the original crash is the fact that he's dislodged an oil pipe. And it's pissed oil everywhere. And in doing that, it's lowered the oil level in the engine. Anyway, he can't see any oil in the oil window. You know, it's almost empty. Mady Boy eventually comes back, having gone off to find some oil, and puts over a litre in. It only holds 1,300 cc's. But had he not crashed, it would have seized. It would have kept going.
Oh, my God.
It would have seized. So that's why it was fortuitous. So he's going again with his knackered wrist, and he gets to the end of that stage. And then, I think I've got this right, then the penultimate stage is always by the organisers' organisation, because that's what they do. The way they organise it is for the penultimate stage to be really tough. And with Simon's knackered wrist, it's unlikely he's going to get through to the end, but he does. And he finishes the Dakar. And do you know what? I came away from that interview after hearing those two stories in much greater detail than I've just described them in, feeling about that adequate and that significant. I felt like a complete nothing because I just listened to this absolute hero without him boasting about anything, I hasten to add, at any point. He was just telling every part of the story in such a matter-of-fact fashion. But yeah, I was moved by the whole thing. And I just walked away and I just went, that's why people like him do the Dakar.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even consider it. Can I just say, to end this story with a bit of humour, I told a mate that I used to trail ride with a lot this story. And I said, so the next time we have a problem, which, let's face it, will be nothing in comparison, I'm going to say, think paving, and we're going to get back on our bikes and we're going to carry on. Anyway, it was a bit of a sloppy winter's day where crashing was the order of the day. My mate went down about 5 times. But after 1, 2, 3, and 4, I said, think paving. He said, you're right. And he carried on. Then after the 5th time, I said, think paving. He said, fuck paving, I'm going home.
I'm going home.
But again, that's, you don't, it's clear. I mean, I don't know if you've talked to either Lyndon Poskett or...
Yeah, I've had Lyndon on,
Yeah, Extants, they're all the same, these Dakar riders. They're all a bit fucking mad, to be honest.
Have you chatted with Joey Evans?
No.
Oh, I had him on the pod. I'm not kidding you. There was a lot of dust in the air. That's all I'm going to say. When he was telling his story, Jesus Christ, he was almost bawling. I'm stood here like, really? And then the amount of geezers that messaged me afterwards and were just like, he had me bawling my eyes out.
Yeah. Go on.
What a story.
Tell me more about Joey then, briefly. Go on.
Do you know who Joey Evans is?
I don't.
He's a South African guy who, right into his off-road, he ends up having a crash when he's off-roading that basically puts him into hospital pretty much as a paraplegic. He's told he'll never walk again. But he said he goes through a lot of really tough times, and whilst he's lying in the hospital bed, he just decides, I'm going to go for the Dakar. I am going to ride the Dakar. So,
as you do.
Yeah, but there's a lot more to it, obviously. But by hook or by crook, he basically forces himself out the hospital bed, and over the course of months, years, teaches himself how to walk again. And eventually he gets back on a bike and he rides. And eventually, after a lot of crashes and lots more injuries, he manages to finish enough of the qualifying races to qualify for the Dakar. And I think it was 10 years. I think it was 10 years, pretty much almost to the day from when he paralysed himself. He was on the start line for the Dakar and he finished it. He completed it. The guy is just, he's one of these people that when he speaks, you listen. And when he speaks, you can't help but just think, right, fuck it. I need to up my game. I've got to apply myself to something. Let's go for it. He's a really motivating person, but such a nice down to earth geezer. Humble, really humble.
Where does he live then?
It's either Joburg or Cape Town. He's South Africa anyway. That's where he's based.
Right.
But he's a lovely guy. If you ever watched the Lyndon Poskett, I think it was the Africa Eco race that he did, and he did it with a team. One of the guys hit a camel. Do you remember that? About 5 years ago? That was Joey. Joey hit a camel. Smashed himself up. Is
somebody sending him a message that he's clearly not receiving?
Yeah, stick to tarmac.
Can I tell you about hitting an animal myself?
Go on.
I do need another wee. Do I have a wee now, or do I hold it back until I've got to the end of this story?
Well, if you think you can make it to the end of the story, let's do the story.
Why did I need to ask you that question?
I know.
Let's right while it's on my mind. Okay, a man called Rich Art paints helmets in the most extraordinary and fantastic fashion.
Yep.
He has finished a helmet for me, something like my 10th one. He always does a great job. So I scurry off up to his house in the Midlands. It's in Solihull. He lives in a very nice house with his parents, who I've got to know quite well. So I go up there, and he's done a fantastic job. And because I know the family quite well, we have a bit of a social. And then I ride away, and I decide to ride down the Foss Way, which is a lovely route. And it's a balmy summer's evening. And I'm in a good mood. This helmet is fabulous. I'm looking in the mirror at my helmet on a regular basis, fucking thinking I'm someone. And you know when you just feel quite content about life. Anyway, fuel light comes on my V-Strom 650. And I pull up at a small town on the Foss Way, fill it up, and I thought, you know what, I'm having an ice cream here. I'm going to celebrate the fact that I'm as happy as I am. I'm just going to chill out, let the world sort of just absorb this happy state that I'm in. I'm going to, just going to get
enjoy the moment.
I'm going to, exactly that. I'm going to get full value from this happy mood that I'm in. Anyway, I set off, bike full of ice cream. 10 miles later, for no apparent reason, I am flying through the air.
Ooh.
Honestly, I had no idea why I was crashing at the speed that I was. I'm doing about 80, down in a big heap. Very lucky to end up in a little clearing in this forest that I was running alongside of. If I'd clipped trees or something, it would have been a different story. I'm largely uninjured, a bit bashed about. I've hit a deer. A deer's just jumped out from said forest at point blank range, and I've not even seen it. The helmet that has been given to me just a few hours earlier is completely and utterly fucked. You know what?
That's a technical term.
I spend a night in Gloucester Hospital just for checks and stuff. I was very lucky, actually. Copper arrived very soon, ambulance soon after. I said, look, I'm all right. It's funny, actually. The accident was witnessed by a car coming in the other direction, and the lady passenger got out of the car, and she was in a state of shock. You know what bike crashes look like? They're horrendous, aren't they? She'd seen this motorcyclist who was coming her way. So what? I've seen that before. She saw the deer. She saw what I didn't. And I hit the deer. There's an explosion of bits, isn't there?
Yeah.
And she came up to me and she said, my God, are you all right? Are you all right? And I said, give me a minute. I'm a bit sore, a bit achy. Oh, are you all right? You all right? And I just said, look, I've done this before. Just give me a minute to just assess myself. It's not my first rodeo.
I'm a seasoned professional.
I'm good at crashing. Anyway, I get carried off to hospital, and I phoned Rich Hart the next day, and I just says, about that helmet. And he said, when did that happen? I said, about 5 o'clock last night. He said, fucking hell, James Hayden's last longer than that. That's the new record. I think he'd handed it to me only an hour and a half earlier, and I've just totally destroyed it. And the funny thing is, I got Nevis to give me another shark helmet, and I got Richard to paint it again. And you know that crash I had on the Nikon?
No.
I was wearing that replacement helmet. And how damaged did that get? Not at all.
Really?
But not as, sometimes you just don't touch the helmet at all. I never marked it at all.
Wow.
Bit of a state of everything else. But to this day, I've not worn it again.
Because, I just think it's an omen.
Yeah. I just think, I'm a bit funny about kit. Have you seen me flipping the GSXR 1000 in spectacular fashion?
I saw that picture.
On that day, brand new leathers, boots and gloves down in a big heap, that very day. So I've always been a bit cagey about what I wear and when. I hate riding in new gear. I just imagine a crash only minutes away every time I put new gear on.
I'm like that with bits on a bike. Like, like for the GS, I like to have the bottom engine bars. I like to have an aftermarket can, and I like to have the spotlights on it. And for me, then I'm like, right, I've got the GS the way I like it.
You're a fucking proper GS owner, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, and I've got myself a ruckus suit and a peaked lid. I'm full on GS wanker, paid member for it, absolutely. But the last time I had all that on the bike, I got told.
I wasn't going to be that polite. Sorry, go on. Go on.
The last time I had my GS like dolled up like that, I got taken out by that nurse. So, like, you know, when she T-boned me and like,
I mean, was she not conscious? Never mind not looking.
I remember it was New Cross, South London. I was heading home from a night duty, and I just remember I was in the bus lane coming up. She approached from the side road, and I remember as she got to the T-junction, she was looking left, and she didn't look at me, and she just pulled out. And I should have known, you know, this is what I was saying earlier about crashing. You know, it's the slower speed stuff that's had the biggest impact on me, because I thought I could react, I thought I could deal with it, but I couldn't stop in time. And that I was doing like 38 and 30.
But that's the problem with town and city riding, isn't it? A set of circumstances, and circumstances that you simply cannot deal with can occur. You know, a car emerging at point blank range. There's all sorts of things happening in all sorts of different directions, isn't it? Well, New Cross is not a great place to crash, is it?
Well, I mean, it has its moments. Yeah, it has its moments.
Near Lewisham?
It is, yeah. New Cross, Lewisham, Catford. You got Peckham, Deptford, all around that area. That's all where I used to work, all those areas, yeah. A vibrant community. That's the term.
Why are we talking about this 2 and 3 wheel shit when we've got so many more interesting topics to discuss?
No, because I'll just end up getting like I used to be, just suspicious of everybody and hate everyone.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are certain parts of life that you ought not to relive, I guess, aren't there?
You know, I mean, no, I'm glad I did that job. I'm glad I worked where I worked and I had the experiences I had.
I'm not saying that, Bruce. I'm not saying that at all. But sometimes it's best left in the past, isn't it?
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I think the job itself has changed insurmountably from what it was. It's just not the same job anymore. And I think we people have changed.
Big style.
Yeah,
the whole attitude and philosophy.
Totally. Yeah. And people's attitude towards the old bill has changed massively, and their expectations of the old bill's changed massively. And
I mean, right, I get the impression it is a truly shit job. It's a thankless, underpaid, under-resourced job. Basically, your bosses or the guys holding the purse strings, they don't give a fuck.
No. I think that's probably the biggest thing is that this is a sweeping generalisation in a term, and my apologies to anyone serving out there on the cloth that it offends. And I'm speaking about my experience within the Met in London when I worked there. I think most coppers got to the stage where they no longer really gave a shit anymore about.
Because they're demoralised, aren't they?
Yeah, people just wanted to turn up, do their shift, and get home, because it was nothing but grief when you were there. You were damned if you did, you were damned if you didn't. Nobody liked you, everyone hated you, everyone thought that you were a fucking bigoted, sexist, rapist, and now they all think you're a murderer, so it's just like, fuck's sake.
I mean, I bet you've got a hell of a lot of sympathy for the guys doing it now, haven't you?
Massively. I do, but then I also, it's weird, now I'm not in the job, I do look at even friends that are still serving, but I see coppers and how coppers are dealing with members of the public, and I just think to myself, "Oh, you're not helping yourself there."
Yeah, but they've been affected too badly by adverse circumstances.
Some have. Some have.
To be decent anymore.
And there's a new breed, because I think the younger generations there is this sense. You've started me here, Mossy, so apologise
No,
to
fine.
people.
No,
That are
I'm
listening.
keen to learn.
There is a younger generation where, again, not everybody, but there does seem to be a sense of entitlement with them, and it's like they don't think they need to go through all of the shite and all of the tough times and do all the shitty job, a proper apprenticeship. Old Bill was exactly the same. When you were a new probationary copper, you got all the shit. You got all literally the shit. When someone that's shit and pissed themselves needs to be such, you're the one that gets called to go and do it. Someone does a dirty protest in the cell, you're the one that has to go and tidy it all up. Well, that's all taken away now because there's other people that deal with it. And you've got coppers turning up now as brand new probationers going, oh, no, I'm not working night shift. I don't want to work a night shift. And, oh, no, I don't want to come in on my day off and work.
Do they
and
think just crime's 9 till 5 or something? Then?
Exactly. But the thing is
committed
that's been tolerated. That attitude has been tolerated by sergeants, inspectors. They're like accommodating this. But you've just raised a really crucial point, that tolerance. That's why it falls apart, doesn't it?
If the parent is tolerant of a fucking shitty child who screams and shouts and demands, the situation is not going to improve, is it?
I feel like we probably grew up with the same adage, he who screams loudest gets served last. Do you know what I mean? Like if you kick and scream, well, tough, you're going to the back of the queue.
Well,
I get the feeling
I just got battered.
Yeah, well, exactly. You did, didn't you? You got a clip round the lug.
It was a punishment. I mean,
now it feels like if you shout and scream the loudest, then you're put to the front of the queue, and people listen to you, and it's like that's not what we should be promoting here.
I mean, we have opened the largest can of worms imaginable here. The whole world is going like that. I mean, I'm going to have a piss in a minute, but I'll leave you with this question, which we will discuss when I return. What future do you think there is for the human race? On that note, and go into the toilet. Don't answer it yet.
I won't. Back in a minute, folks. Nearly 4 hours.
Only just fucking started, man. What's up with you?
Don't worry, folks. Part 2 is coming next week.